Chapter 1061. Back in the heavenly mandate realm, Yi Tianyun did not linger. He followed the instructions on the token and quickly flew to the region where the heavenly spring realm was located. He took out his spirit boat and started flying at an extremely fast speed. He spent the rest of his time on the move. He had to pass through many regions before he could reach the heavenly spring realm. There was a huge gap between a first-grade and a second-grade god realm, and it was like stepping into a whole new world. Even the deity arena had been in the first-grade god realm. This kind of battle would definitely be held in the first-grade god realm, not the second-grade god realm. Otherwise, he would have to fly a long distance to reach the second-grade god realm. This kind of test really takes up a lot of time. Yi Tianyun could only refine elixirs or weapons on the spirit boat. Not only could he gain proficiency, but he could also gain experience. Since he had nothing to do, he had never cultivated. Killing enemies was the best way to gain experience. He could just slowly absorb star power to cultivate like the others. Time passed quickly. He had spent half a year on the spirit boat. During this time, he had refined many weapons and elixirs, all of which were lower-grade reincarnation-grade weapons. The elixirs were also of high grade. His proficiency in all aspects had improved, which was why he was able to refine them. He would not have been able to before. "Friend, wait up." At this time, a shout came from outside. Yi Tianyun stopped the spirit boat and checked the situation outside. He found a cultivator blocking his way. He frowned and flew out of the spirit boat. He put away the spirit boat and asked in confusion, "Friend, what's the matter?" The person in front of him was not a human, but a member of the tree clan. His entire body was entangled by tree roots. "Human?" The tree clan member looked up and down at Yi Tianyun. There was no contempt in his eyes, but more surprise. "There's no problem. Are you planning to take the spirit boat to cross the Starland?" "The Starland?" Yi Tianyun was confused. "Yes, it seems like you know nothing about this place. If you want to pass through this region and reach the second-grade god domain, why don't you take our ship? I guarantee that you will be able to pass smoothly. If you can't pass, we won't take a single cent from you." The tree tribe member finally stated his purpose. Yi Tianyun raised his eyes and looked ahead. Not far away, there were countless rocks. They looked quite dense and were constantly rolling around. If he was not careful and was hit by them, it would definitely be fatal. Seeing the situation over there, he immediately remembered the situation that he had been paying attention to before. The Land of Stars, as the name suggested, was a place of tumbling meteorites. There was even a sea of stars in it. If it was swept over, even the Lord of Heaven would die in it. If they were to simply take an ordinary spirit boat to enter, then the result would be certain death. There was no ruling out that some people could pass, but that was only possible if they were extremely lucky. Most of them were difficult to pass. One had to pass through a certain type of person, and that was the boatman. It was obvious that this tree tribe member was a boatman trying to rope in customers. "Take me there." Yi Tianyun did not say much. It seemed that it was indeed not easy to pass through. Only with a powerful spirit boat and an experienced guide would one be able to pass through smoothly. "All right, come with me." The tree tribe member smiled happily and immediately brought him to the side. Not far away, there was a huge spirit boat. It was much more spacious than Yi Tianyun's. The key point was that this was a low-grade heavenly Tao-level spirit ship. It was many times better than his shabby spirit boat. When Yi Tianyun was brought to the huge spirit ship, he immediately felt a lot of eyes looking at him. After looking up and down, some of them were surprised, but most of them retracted their gaze and didn't bother to pay any attention to them. Yi Tianyun looked around and found that there were unfamiliar faces all around him. There were actually quite a few people riding on this spirit boat. At a glance, there were at least several hundred people on the spirit boat. Many of them wanted to pass through the Land of Stars and reach the second-grade god domain. Everyone's cultivation was at the 4th or 5th refinement Earthlord realm. There were also many Lord of Heaven waiting here, preparing to pass through the Land of Stars. "Shu Feng, are we still not leaving?" Some of the cultivators were starting to get impatient. It was clear that they had been waiting here for a long time. "Ready, ready." The tree tribe member guiding them was Shu Feng. I'll have to trouble everyone to wait for another day. Whether or not someone else comes up, we will definitely leave. At this time, everyone suppressed their dissatisfied expressions and continued to wait. Shu Feng and the others wanted to hurry up and leave, but if they did so, they would not be able to recover their costs. Passing through the land of stars required too much energy, especially when those hard meteorites came crashing down. At that time, they would have to repair the spirit boat. Thus, they needed to carry enough passengers. Otherwise, it would be a losing business. Will you be paying with star stones or treasures? Shu Feng turned to look at Yi Tianyun. Weapons. Yi Tianyun said without thinking. That's fine. If it's low-grade samsara-grade weapons, I'll need 30, medium-grade 5, and high-grade 1. Shu Feng quoted. So expensive? Yi Tianyun was startled. If this was the case, then wouldn't this trip be a crazy profit? Looking around, there were several hundred people. If all of them handed over low-grade samsara-grade weapons, then that would be thousands or even tens of thousands of weapons. Dear customer, is this your first time coming here? This price is relatively low. You don't know how much we'll consume. Repairing a spirit boat requires a great deal of materials. Shu Feng rubbed his palms together and smiled. If someone said that they were losing money, Yi Tianyun wouldn't believe it even if they beat him to death. But if they wanted to pass through the land of stars, this was the only way. Otherwise, there really would be no way for him to pass through. He would need to expend a great deal of effort to do so. Without a heavenly Tao-level spirit boat, they would be annoyed to death by those meteorites along the way. If you can't afford it, then get off. Stop grumbling. Humans are humans, and the poor are the poor. One of the giant rock race on the side was already impatient, and when he saw Yi Tianyun talking to him, he felt very unhappy. Yi Tianyun's eyes were cold. Just as he was about to say something, someone stood up and coldly said, "Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven, it seems you are quite arrogant. Who said our people can't do it? If he can't afford it, then I'll pay." At this time, a large fellow stood up and glared at the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven. So it's the Law Pattern Lord of Heaven. Humans really do like to band together. The Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven disdainfully said, "I'm just speaking the truth. Do you really think it's so easy to pass through the land of stars? The price here is quite good. If you don't have the money, then don't sit." Chapter 1062. Yi Tianyun's words caused the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven to shake his head. The Lord of Heaven sneered, "If you can afford it, then what are you grumbling about? This is my first time riding a spirit ship and I can't even ask. Don't tell me you don't ask the price when you buy things." Yi Tianyun lightly said. The Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven was left speechless by this retort. The first time he had ridden a spirit ship, he had also been shocked by the price. But how could he not retort? He said in a low voice, "In any case, your goal has been achieved. The mystical pattern Lord of Heaven is a good person. He will help you pay for it." "No need, I can pay for it myself." Yi Tianyun looked at the mystical pattern Lord of Heaven and smiled. "Mystical pattern Lord of Heaven, thank you for your help. But I can still pay for it." As he spoke, he took out 30 low-grade samsara-grade weapons and handed them over. Shu Feng quickly received them and beamed with joy. Thank you, thank you." As he spoke, he walked outside. When the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven saw this, he coldly snorted and didn't say anything. Seeing Yi Tianyun take them out so readily, it seemed that he had some background. This small interlude caused Yi Tianyun to feel that his status was low. Of the several hundred people present, humans were in the minority. There were less than 10. "Little brother, come over here and sit." The mystical pattern Lord of Heaven ignored the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven and led Yi Tianyun to the side. It wasn't that he didn't want to argue with the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven, but that the Stone Dragon Lord of Heaven's cultivation was higher. It wasn't a good thing to have a falling out with him. Yi Tianyun followed to the side and sat down. The humans all gathered around him. "Little brother, how should I address you?" The mystical pattern Lord of Heaven asked with a smile. "I am Earth Monarch Tianyun. Greetings fellow Taoists." He smiled. The other humans were very enthusiastic towards him and had surrounded him before. Obviously, they would still stick together when facing the outside world, and there would not be any internal strife. So it's Earthly Lord Tianyun. You're heading to the second-grade God region alone? Asked the Lord of Heaven. Yes, just me. Yi Tianyun said with a smile. Going alone with no one to rely on, why don't you join us? We are all itinerant cultivators, and we plan to create our own world in the Grade 2 God domain. The Lord of Heaven clearly thought that Yi Tianyun was alone and wanted to fight his way to the Grade 2 God domain. These kinds of people were not rare. Most of them were rogue cultivators who had stayed in the Grade 1 God domain for too long and wanted to try their luck in the Grade 2 God domain. Although it was a little difficult to reach Grade 2 God realm, it was at least more than a Grade 1 God realm. The others looked at the mystical Prince Lord of Heaven with burning gazes. Clearly, they were planning to follow the mystical Prince Lord of Heaven and roam the second-grade God domain together. I'm very sorry, but I don't have such plans for now. I'm used to being alone, and I want to roam the second-grade God domain for a while. Yi Tianyun didn't tell them his goal. He wasn't familiar with them, and it was better to be cautious. The moment he said this, everyone looked disappointed. They felt that he didn't know how to appreciate favors. What kind of achievements could a person achieve in a Grade 2 God domain? Since Earthly Lord Tianyun has such thoughts, I won't force you. The Lord of Heaven didn't look disappointed. He just felt that it was a pity and didn't force it. Then, they didn't continue chatting. Since they had different goals, there was no need to talk too much. When they left this place, they would go their separate ways. There was no need to talk too much. In any case, they weren't working together, so there was no need to talk too much. A day later, the spirit ship finally started moving. The giant spirit ship shook as it began to fly towards the land of stars. We're setting off now. Everyone, please sit down. When you go out, please don't fly out of the barrier. Otherwise, we won't be able to save you. Shu Feng walked in and explained, at the same time, there may be unavoidable dangers along the way. If you do, please listen to our instructions and participate in the battle. There were many monster beasts moving around in the land of stars, specifically hunting cultivators. Their spiritual intelligence wasn't low, and they knew the effects of pills and treasures. Therefore, they were equivalent to bandits in the land of stars. When they saw cultivators, they would definitely come to rob them. Otherwise, many people would have gone alone rather than riding the spirit ship together. If they went alone, unless they were very strong, they wouldn't even know how they died. There are still monster beasts intercepting us. Yi Tianyun was a bit curious. He knew that the land of stars was dangerous, but he didn't understand it in detail. It seems that Earthly Lord Tianyun didn't understand this place in advance. The Lord of Heaven smiled and explained, basically, if you pass through the land of stars, you will definitely encounter star sea monsters. However, they aren't very strong, so you can easily kill them. You can also obtain a lot of materials, so why not? Those who are capable can go and block them. The materials obtained from killing the star sea monsters will naturally belong to you. The price is quite high. If you kill a few more, you can earn back the basic travel expenses. So that's how it is. Yi Tianyun nodded. It seemed that there were still many things he didn't understand. Generally speaking, it's us lords of heaven who take action. Earthly lords don't need to do anything, so there's no need to worry about any danger. Of course, if you are capable, you can also give it a try. The Lord of Heaven explained very patiently, without the slightest bit of impatience. This wasn't an act. He was really patient, and he seemed like a good person. However, Yi Tianyun had to report to the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, so he wouldn't join other rogue cultivator factions. So that's how it is. Thank you, Lord of Heaven, for your explanation, Yi Tianyun said gratefully. It's fine. The Lord of Heaven smiled. The nearby cultivators were a little dissatisfied. They didn't know why Yi Tianyun dared to come here. He didn't know anything, and yet he dared to come here. Most importantly, Yi Tianyun didn't plan on joining them, so they didn't have much of a good impression of him. Yi Tianyun couldn't be bothered to care about their thoughts. In any case, after passing through the Starland, it was unlikely that they would meet again. Soon, a month passed. Everyone was meditating and cultivating. The journey was very long. Yi Tianyun heard that it would take at least 1 or 2 years to pass through the starland. One could imagine how far this region was. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Suddenly, the entire spirit ship shook, startling everyone inside. They all jumped up from the ground. Before they could use their spiritual senses to investigate the situation outside, Xu Feng rushed in from outside and shouted, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" Xu Feng rushed in from outside and shouted, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" Everyone's expressions changed, and they all ran out of the spirit ship. Yi Tianyun ran out with them. What he saw was a dense horde of star sea monsters. These star sea monsters looked like bats, but they were much larger than bats. Their bodies were pitch black, and they blended in with the pitch black space outside. These star sea monsters looked like bats, but they were much larger. Their bodies were pitch black, and they seemed to blend in with the pitch black space outside. Chapter 1063. So many astral sea demons, all the cultivators were dumbfounded. Many of them were here for the first time and had never seen such a large formation before. Tens of thousands of star sea monsters constantly smashed into the spirit ship's enchantment barrier, causing loud rumbling sounds to ring out. They wanted to break through the barrier and drill in. All of them had ferocious expressions as they bit at the barrier with their huge fangs, trying to tear it apart. Fortunately, this was a Heaven Dao level spirit ship and had a barrier. Even a divine lord might not be able to break through it easily. Although they wouldn't be able to break through the barrier in a short period of time, it would definitely be broken once the energy was exhausted. Especially since they couldn't see the path ahead, they might crash into a meteorite. That would be the end of them. Crashing into a meteorite wouldn't damage the spirit ship, but it would greatly weaken the spirit ship's barrier. Yi Tianyun swept his gaze across. These astral sea demons were generally at the 3rd or 4th refinement Earth Monarch realm. Their cultivation wasn't high, but there were too many of them. Even if one's cultivation was higher than theirs, they would be easily torn to pieces. It's been a long time since I've seen so many astral sea demons. We'll be busy this time. Mystical Patterns Lord of Heaven took out a long sword and prepared to enter a battle state. The other Lord of Heaven also took out their weapons and prepared to enter a battle state. Capable Earth Monarchs, please participate in the battle. Treepeak's head was dripping with cold sweat. They had all seen astral sea demons before, but they had never seen so many. There were simply too many of them, dozens of times more than what they usually encountered. How could they not be frightened? Just relying on the Lord of Heaven wasn't enough to defend this place. There were hundreds of cultivators on the ship, and most of them were below the Lord of Heaven. There were many Earth Monarchs. Lord of Heaven only had a dozen or so, which wasn't considered a lot. It would be too difficult for a dozen or so people to resist tens of thousands of astral sea demons. They might even die of exhaustion. Everyone looked at each other. Most Earth Monarchs didn't want to face these astral sea demons. If they weren't careful, they might be dragged out. I am willing to participate in the battle. Yi Tianyun stood out. There was no doubt that he had to participate in the battle. Otherwise, it would affect their journey. Yi Tianyun was the first to step out and fight. Instantly, he attracted many admiring gazes from the Lord of Heaven. If he didn't even have the courage, how could he become stronger? With him taking the lead, others followed. However, there were still a few who chose to hide and not participate in the battle. I paid so much money to take the boat, but in the end, I still have to defend against the sea monsters. Whoever wants to kill me can go, but I can't be bothered. That's right. There are so many star sea demons. Once the barrier is broken, we're dead for sure. All of them walked into the spirit ship with great dissatisfaction. Although their cultivations weren't low, none of them were willing to face these starry sea monsters. Just as they were about to enter, they were immediately blocked by a burly figure, who threw them back. Get out of here. Get ready to kill the star sea demon. The one that emerged from the spirit ship was an extremely tall and sturdy tree. His cultivation had reached the peak of the Lord of Heaven. In a first-grade god realm, he would be in existence at the level of a region lord. Captain, you came out? Xu Feng hurriedly ran over and said. How could I not come out? If I didn't come out, my boat would be destroyed. The captain looked around coldly and said in a deep voice, "No matter who it is, you must participate in the battle. The situation is urgent now. If we don't participate, then we will all die here." Why should we? We paid so much money, and you want us to defend against the Starseed demon beasts? Isn't the safety of the guests your responsibility? The cultivator retorted angrily. The captain looked at him coldly and said, "That's right, but the situation is urgent now. If you don't participate in the battle, I will be the first to throw you out to feed the Starseed demons." When that person felt the captain's boldness, his legs went soft, and he didn't dare to refute. If he continued to refute, he would definitely be thrown out. Long story short, I don't know how so many Starseed demons got here, but since it has already happened, we can only defend. The captain walked to the middle of the crowd and said in a deep voice, "Later, I will open the barrier and release some Starseed demons. When that time comes, you will form a formation and attack. As for me, I will take the lead and protect the safety of this boat. Do you have any suggestions?" "No suggestions, we will listen to the captain." Immediately, someone agreed. It wasn't that they didn't have their own ideas, but that they would listen to the captain's instructions. To be able to survive here, one must have some skills. It would be best for him to command. "All right, if there are no objections, follow my instructions." The captain didn't say too much. He looked up at the Starseed demons that surrounded the boat and said in a deep voice, "Now, split into 20 teams, including 1 Lord of Heaven and 10 earthly lords. If there are any familiar companions, try to gather together." Under the command, they quickly split up. Yi Tianyun and the others didn't need to move much. They just needed to stay with the mystical inscription Lord of Heaven, which fulfilled the conditions of the captain. In a short while, they were all divided into teams. Some of them were acquaintances, and some were strangers. If they were familiar, they would be familiar with each other's abilities. Working together would undoubtedly increase their chances of survival. "Get ready for the first wave." The captain raised his hand, and the group of people got ready. They held their weapons tightly in their hands, ready to start a bloody battle. Open. Under his control, the thick barrier quickly disappeared. Following that, a large group of Starseed demons surged in from outside the barrier like a flood. However, not long after, the captain quickly formed a hand seal and said, "Close." Soon, the barrier quickly closed, forming an unbreakable barrier that blocked the group of Starseed demons outside. They collided with the barrier fiercely, letting out ear-piercing screams. They couldn't enter even if they wanted to. In less than a few breaths' time, thousands of Starseed demons had entered. When they saw the group of cultivators, their eyes emitted green light and they all pounced on them. The cultivators, who were already prepared, rushed forward and fought with the Starseed demons that pounced on them. Yi Tianyun held the heavenly divine spear in his hand, aimed at the Starseed demons that pounced on them, and stabbed them with the spear. Basically, 1 spear for 1. A huge amount of experience immediately surged, and his eyes lit up. It was time to level up. "Everyone, stand beside me. I will protect you." The mystical inscription Lord of Heaven shouted, indicating for them to surround him. The others surrounded him. Facing so many Starseed demons, they didn't dare to move. When the other members of the same race formed a circle, Yi Tianyun flew out alone and fiercely swung his spear. With 3 swoosh 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 swoosh, 3 huge Starseed demons' chests were pierced and they fell from the sky. Before these Starseed demons even landed on the ground, he had already stored them in his inventory. From killing them to keeping them in his inventory, everything was done in one go, without any pause. Add an extra update. More, everyone. Chapter 1064. Yi Tianyun's actions gave his teammates a shock. He didn't fight with them but charged out alone. This action was really shocking. They didn't expect him to be so daring. There was nothing wrong with being daring, but doing so was simply sending himself to death. However, Yi Tianyun's performance was so smooth that he instantly killed 3 astral sea demons. This was really shocking. "Mystical Prince Lord of Heaven, gather here. I'll guard this side alone. You guys guard the other side." After a simple exchange with Mystical Prince Lord of Heaven, Yi Tianyun charged over alone and guarded one side. There were more than 100 astral sea demons on that side, much more than the other sides. What? What is he trying to do? Charging out alone? Isn't he courting death? What does his death have to do with us if he doesn't listen to our instructions? Does he think he's invincible just because he's a little capable? He's only killed a few. There's still a large group behind. If I were him, I would do the same. What's he so arrogant about? That's right. He didn't listen to mystical Prince Lord of Heaven's instructions. If he dies, so be it. When they saw Yi Tianyun charging out, they all thought that Yi Tianyun was dead for sure. Especially when Yi Tianyun charged into so many astral sea demons. It was obvious that he was courting death. Lord Tianyun, hurry up and come back. Mystical Prince Lord of Heaven hurriedly shouted. It's hard to fend off so many of them alone. We need to surround them and fend them off. That's the best way for us. Yi Tianyun ignored Mystical Prince Lord of Heaven as if he didn't hear it. Instead, he swung his spear and swept over. In an instant, a few astral sea demons were easily killed by his spear. Then, he quickly put the corpses into his inventory. It was extremely easy. He knew that it would be easier if they worked together, but he didn't need to do so. He was not afraid of fighting alone. Especially since he had entrusted his back to them. If even his back couldn't take it, then they might as well just die. He wasn't leaving the team to fight, but choosing to defend a place by himself. Ding. Killed Star Sea Monster, 4th Refinement Earth Lord. Reward, 130 million EXP, 8 million Crazy Points, 700,000 SPS. Obtained Star Sea Demon's Fang, rare. Star Sea Demon's Skin, rare. Star Sea Demon's Bone, rare. Ding. Killed Star Sea Monster, 3rd Refinement Earth Lord. Reward, 112 billion EXP, 7 million Crazy Points. Ding. Killed Star Sea Demon. It had been a long time since he had experienced so much EXP. This time, he would definitely be able to break through to the 7th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm. Even the 8th refinement wouldn't be a problem. Soon, Yi Tianyun was defending one of the areas with all his might. No matter how many astral sea demons there were, they were all easily killed by his spear. Not a single one of them could come over, so they could only attack from other directions. The Lord of Heaven who was guarding Yi Tianyun's back was shocked when they saw Yi Tianyun's bravery. They thought that Yi Tianyun was courting death, but they didn't expect him to be so ferocious. Heavenly Cloud Earth Lord, guard next to us, we just need to defend this place. In terms of support, let me help. The Lord of Heavenly Tattoos immediately gave instructions, indicating that they should just defend one side to the death. Everyone nodded and couldn't help but look at Yi Tianyun. With such ferocious fighting strength, can he last forever or just for a while? They thought that Yi Tianyun was just trying to show off, and he definitely wouldn't be able to last for too long. But they didn't care. Since Yi Tianyun wants to play like this, then let him do it. Anyway, if he dies, it has nothing to do with them. Since he wasn't willing to listen, then they couldn't be bothered to persuade him. Next, Yi Tianyun guarded the front and killed the astral sea demons crazily. It seemed like his sin value was too high, causing the densely packed astral sea demons to focus on him. He had killed so many astral sea demons single-handedly. How could he not be the main target? Yi Tianyun's actions attracted the attention of many. He was clearly an Earth Lord, but the standard he displayed was far beyond everyone's expectations. He was even more ferocious than the Lord of Heaven. They were killed crazily by his spear and became the wandering souls of his spear. Originally, they thought that he wouldn't be able to last for long. Who knew that he wouldn't be able to stop killing one after another? In less than a moment, close to 100 astral sea demons were easily killed by him. At this time, most of the astral sea demons on the battlefield had been eliminated. No one revealed any smiles or complacency. This was only a small portion of them. There were still a large number of astral sea demons surrounding them. Prepare for the second wave. The captain didn't give them any time to rest. Very quickly, he released the second wave of astral sea demons. This time, the number of astral sea demons was several times more than the previous wave. Originally, there were a few thousand of them. Now, it had risen to 10,000. It wasn't that the captain intentionally did this. It was because there were too many of them. By the time the barrier recovered, a large number of them had already surged in. Kill. Their eyes were bloodshot as they continuously slashed at the astral sea demons. There were piles and piles of star sea demons, causing many Earth monarchs to feel their hair stand on end. They wished they weren't on this ship. It was simply a nightmare. But apart from defending, they had no other choice. If they didn't defend, only death awaited them. Accompanied by a miserable scream, one of the cultivators was lifted into the air. In the blink of an eye, he was swept up by countless astral sea demons. Not even his bones were left. This was the terrifying nature of numbers. Even if the astral sea demons' cultivation was lower than theirs, when they swarmed over, they would definitely catch them off guard. Among the 20 teams, most of them gradually started to suffer casualties. Only one team didn't suffer any casualties. That was the team that Yi Tianyun was in. Yi Tianyun's team was rather relaxed. They were split into 2 regions. One region was guarded by Yi Tianyun, while the other region was guarded by the mystical patterns Lord of Heaven. There was absolutely no pressure. The main reason was that most of the pressure was absorbed by Yi Tianyun. They still had the Lord of Heaven to protect them. How could there be any casualties? If there were casualties, it meant that the mystical patterns Lord of Heaven was too weak. They originally thought that Yi Tianyun would withdraw very quickly. Who knew that he would be able to hold on? Hundreds of astral sea demons died in his hands. As time passed, the number of astral sea demons increased. If the corpses weren't retrieved, the ground would definitely be littered with them. This Tianyun Earth Monarch is too strong. He has persisted for so long. Mystical Patterns Lord of Heaven was extremely shocked. He originally thought that it would be his turn to take over the defense. Who knew that Yi Tianyun was getting more and more ferocious and couldn't stop? Let alone him, even his teammates were dumbfounded. They only had one thought in their minds: is this guy a killing god? Chapter 1065. Yi Tianyun's madness truly frightened many people. If it was the Lord of Heaven, then everyone could understand. But this was the first time they had seen such a berserk Earth Lord. This degree of savagery, even a normal Lord of Heaven wouldn't be able to achieve it, right? But Yi Tianyun did it. It was as if he was on drugs. He crazily slaughtered the starry sea demons around him, and didn't look tired at all. If he could quickly earn a massive amount of experience, how could he feel tired? When he went crazy, he simply couldn't stop. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for reaching the standard of breaking through to the 7th Refinement Earthlord. Do you wish to choose to break through now? Not for now. Yi Tianyun didn't want to break through now. If he broke through now, then he would have to deal with the heavenly tribulation. That would be too troublesome. After refusing, he continued to slaughter, constantly accumulating experience. According to the number of starry sea demons, he could continue to break through another level, or even 2 levels. With so many starry sea demons stacking up, his experience skyrocketed. This is too abnormal. Is this fellow really a human? Nonsense, he is definitely a human. I just don't know where he came from. This is only a 6th Refinement Earthlord, but the strength he can erupt with is far stronger than us. Could he be a disciple of some powerful realm of the gods? No way. If he is a disciple of some powerful realm of the gods, why would he go alone? He should be traveling with someone. Or perhaps he has his own spirit ship, so why would he ride it with us? Everyone was dumbfounded by the situation here. Others killed a starry sea demon, but Yi Tianyun killed 3 or 4. Currently, there was only one person who could compare with him, and that was the captain. The captain was extremely violent. Countless vines wrapped around the starry sea demons, instantly draining them dry or crushing them. Even the stone dragon Lord of Heaven was inferior to Yi Tianyun. At the very least, it didn't dare to rush forward too much. Where did that kid come from? The crag dragon Lord of Heaven's expression did not look too good. He had ruthlessly mocked Yi Tianyun before, but now it seemed that Yi Tianyun's strength was even stronger than his. However, the appearance of an extremely powerful freak would definitely be a little more surprising. There were so many astral sea demons around, and everyone wanted nothing more than for Yi Tianyun to kill as many as he could. Only then would they be safe. Yi Tianyun's battle prowess had also attracted the captain's attention. However, he was the vanguard, so he had no time to talk to Yi Tianyun. His eyes were filled with pleasant surprise. He felt that Yi Tianyun was really a pleasant surprise. Yi Tianyun's battle prowess was stronger than many Lord of Heavens. The most important thing was that they were not as cowardly as the Lord of Heaven. They were all beaten and retreated, not daring to charge too fiercely. He could have attacked more fiercely, but he just had to shrink back, which made him feel very speechless. If that was the case, his own team members would suffer. In fact, that was indeed the case. Those Lord of Heaven who retreated caused the astral sea demons to pounce on their own team members, causing them to be captured and torn apart. Their cultivation bases were clearly so far apart, and they had the absolute advantage, but they were still cowering. This made him feel very disappointed. Yi Tianyun's appearance, on the other hand, gave him a pleasant surprise. "Prepare to activate the third wave," the captain shouted, preparing to activate the third wave. After hearing this, everyone's expression changed. They had only killed about 70 to 80%, and now they were preparing to activate the third wave. They were not even giving them a break. Those who knew the situation knew that the captain definitely wanted to let them rest, but these astral sea demons were too strong. If they did not continue to let them in, they would burst the barrier, and all of them would be finished. They had to quickly resolve the pressure outside so that they could last longer. As soon as he finished speaking, the barrier was activated again, and tens of thousands of astral sea demons pounced down again. When the captain was about to activate the barrier, a shout came from the side, "Captain, please don't activate the barrier." The captain was taken aback. Then, a few figures broke through the void above and blasted a large hole in the group of astral sea demons. The few figures had just landed, and the captain quickly formed hand seals, quickly activating the barrier. Because he was a few beats late, the original plan of letting in tens of thousands of astral sea demons had now become tens of thousands. The densely packed astral sea demons roared inside, and they began to crazily bite at the team members. Among the few figures that landed, there were 3 men and 1 woman. No one knew where they came from. They had just entered, and they immediately joined in the slaughter. Violent energy swept towards these astral sea demons, and in an instant, a large number of them died. There was no doubt that the sudden addition of a super expert was not a burden. Blaze. Terrifying flames enveloped the surroundings, burning the astral sea demons that pounced over to ashes, and they could not be more dead. The violent sacred flames gave everyone a fright. And this was done by a woman. How could even women be so powerful? Where did these people come from? When Yi Tianyun saw the woman, his eyes narrowed. When the woman saw him, she was also stunned, but soon she continued to kill without stopping. Why is Heavenly God here? Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed. The domineering woman in front of him was none other than Heavenly God and Earthly God. He did not expect to meet her here. Wasn't she captured by the divine beast in the starfield? How could she be released? Heavenly God and Earthly God, I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence. Heavenly God and Earthly God, or rather, the Divine Emperor Yu Qin. Her beautiful eyes sparkled as she looked at Yi Tianyun, and no one knew what she was planning. "You're not here to catch me, are you?" Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed slightly, and he felt that things were definitely not simple. He knew that the Divine Emperor Yu Qin had some relationship with the Divine Beast in the starfield, otherwise, he would not have said that before. Since he was sure that Yi Tianyun would be caught, he told him everything. He guessed that the Divine Emperor Yu Qin came here to catch him. "Catch you? That's what they want." "I don't mean that. I just came out to take a walk and take a breather." The Divine Emperor Yu Qin's expression was cold. "But after this is over, don't run away. I have something to tell you. Don't worry. As long as you don't want to catch me, I won't bother to run away." Yi Tianyun continued to kill the star sea demons around him. When they finished their conversation, the other side also began to talk, but it was not through voice transmission. "Captain Tree, I didn't expect that we would meet again in such a dangerous place." One of the giant bears waved his giant paw and killed several star sea demons with one slap. "Captain Bear, what happened? Did your ship fall?" Captain Tree's face sank, which meant that the problem was serious. There are too many of them, no less than hundreds of thousands of star sea demons. I don't know what happened. Captain Bear said a despairing news. Chapter 1066. The news that Captain Xiong brought wasn't good news at all. Rather, it was news that made everyone feel even heavier. They thought that there would only be tens of thousands of star sea monsters, but now there were hundreds of thousands. Captain Xiong's original spirit ship had been destroyed and only 4 people survived. The 4 of them were extremely powerful existences, which was why they were able to kill their way out of the sea monster's encirclement. Otherwise, they really would have died inside. They didn't know how many people were on Captain Xiong's spirit ship, but only 4 people managed to escape. Everyone saw their situation and then looked at the situation outside. They could already foresee what would happen to them. Hundreds of thousands of star sea monsters, just what is going on? There has never been such a situation before. Captain Tree was shocked. He didn't know where these things had come from. How would we know? They suddenly killed their way out, catching us off guard. We have countless casualties and we don't even know where our brothers are. We just happened to see a ship on your side, so we immediately rushed over to ask for help. Captain Xiong ruthlessly slammed the star sea monsters into the ground, turning them into minced meat. His anger could be seen from this. This is strange. There must be something going on, otherwise there wouldn't be so many star sea monsters appearing. Could it be? Captain Tree's complexion changed and his hands slowed down. You're also thinking that way? Captain Xiong bitterly smiled. I hope we didn't really encounter a star overlord. That thing is elusive, so how could we have encountered one? Star overlord. This was an extreme term. In truth, it was the king of star sea monsters. Once their cultivation reached the divine lord level, they would generally not appear. Once they appeared, it would mean total annihilation. The land of stars was extremely vast and star overlords were rare to begin with. It was basically impossible to encounter one in this vast land. The chances of encountering one were negligible, less than 1 in 10,000, or even less than 1 in 100,000. In the entire land of stars, the number of star overlords could be counted on one's palm. To encounter one in such a vast land was the same as encountering a peerless treasure. After everyone heard the title of Star Overlord, their faces turned incomparably pale. Cold sweat dripped down their backs and their eyes filled with despair. Seeing so many star sea demons flying all over the sky, it was very likely that they had encountered the legendary Star Overlord. If they were to encounter a Star Overlord, given their current situation, they would definitely die. The difference between the two was too great. Even if there was an existence at the peak of the Lord of Heaven level, it was still too difficult to deal with the Lord God level Star Overlord. Star Overlord. Yi Tianyun squinted his eyes. This was really tricky. It could be said that this was an unlucky year. This was his first time in the land of stars, and he had already encountered a Star Overlord. Wasn't this asking for death? Of course, he was still very calm. With the teleportation godstone in hand, he could escape in an instant. What was there to be afraid of? As for the life and death of the others, it had nothing to do with him. He couldn't save them even if he wanted to. The question was whether it was true or not was another matter. It doesn't matter if it's the Overlord of Constellation or not. It might not be. We should focus on the present. Kill all these people and charge out. If the Star Overlord really comes, even if I die, I will drag a bunch of starseed demons down with me. Captain Tree roared angrily. Countless tree vines turned into sharp thorns and pierced through the surroundings, killing more than 10 starseed demons in one breath. His domineering aura was unparalleled. Captain Tree's loud roar instantly raised the morale of the people. He knew that no matter what the outcome was, if the morale was gone, they would be finished. They wouldn't even need to wait for the Star Overlord to show up. Well said. Kill as many of them as they come. Kill them all. Captain Bear also knew the drawbacks of the matter. Their conversation affected the mood of many people. The main thing now was to raise the morale of the people. Otherwise, they would definitely die. That's right. Even if I die, I will kill a few more starseed demons. We can't let them eat us so easily. Before we die, we have to fight them to the death. Damn it, I don't want to die so easily. Let's kill a few more. Their morale had recovered a little, and they were more ruthless than before. They knew that they were in a critical moment. If they didn't be ruthless, who would save them? The only thing they could do now was save themselves. After Yi Tianyun heard this, he faintly smiled. This was the mentality of a powerhouse. Then, they continued to crazily slaughter the Star Sea demons, easily killing them. Their experience constantly surged up. Although their morale had risen, they still weren't able to kill all of the Star Sea demons. They had to kill wave after wave. In contrast, they had suffered many casualties, and many of them were injured. The main reason was that they had consumed far too much energy. Even if they replenished themselves with pills, they still wouldn't be able to recover quickly enough. In particular, if they continued to kill for such a long time, even the Lord of Heaven would gradually lose his strength. The enchantment barrier won't last much longer. Captain Tree's complexion changed. He could already feel that the spirit ship was reaching its limit. It wouldn't be able to last much longer before it completely collapsed. Captain Tree, I have an idea. I wonder if you would like to try it out. A voice sounded out in his mind, causing him to glance at Yi Tianyun. Speak. The situation was urgent, so Captain Tree made a long story short. I can break through to a higher level and attract heavenly tribulation. At that time, I will increase the strength of the heavenly tribulation. At that time, I will definitely be able to cause damage to these Star Sea demons. The biggest problem is that heavenly tribulation will attack indiscriminately, and there is a chance that it will affect our own people. Yi Tianyun said in a low voice, but I plan to kill my way out and attract the heavenly tribulation. At that time, it will be safer. The problem is that I need someone to open a path for me. I will need the help of the two captains, otherwise I won't be able to rush out too far. He was very strong, but 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. If there were too many of them, it would be difficult to kill them. As for wearing the sacred sword set, saint artifacts were meaningless. They couldn't cut through them at all. Unless he had a higher level set, but he couldn't equip a higher level set. Whether it was the evil demon god set, they all required the Lord of Heaven's cultivation. Right now, he hadn't reached the Lord of Heaven's cultivation, so he naturally couldn't use them. Heavenly tribulation? Captain Tree's eyes brightened. This method was feasible, but the premise was to anger the heavenly tribulation. But, the biggest problem was that after angering the heavenly tribulation, there was a chance that Yi Tianyun would be killed by the heavenly tribulation. There is no time to think about it. Let's do it, Captain Tree. Yi Tianyun immediately reminded. Chapter 1067. Yi Tianyun had come up with the idea of the heavenly tribulation before. After all, the heavenly lightning would strike anyone who got too close, especially when there were so many starry sea demons. A single bolt of heavenly lightning would definitely kill a large number of them. Under normal circumstances, as long as they did not get too close, there would definitely be no problem. Once they got too close, they would easily anger the heavenly tribulation. It was equivalent to the heavenly tribulation believing that the person undergoing the tribulation was cheating and asking others to help resist it. At that time, an even stronger heavenly tribulation would erupt to suppress them. However, Yi Tianyun was not in a hurry to say this idea. The main reason was that if he said it too early, the other party would probably not be too willing to do so. After all, they needed someone to help open the way, which meant that they would have to temporarily abandon this place. It was a little like staking everything on one throw. Now that the situation was critical, Captain Tree and the others definitely had to give it a try. Otherwise, they would definitely die. Very soon, Captain Tree contacted Captain Bear. After a brief exchange, Captain Bear looked at Yi Tianyun with his huge eyes, full of radiance. Brother Tianyun, whether you succeed or fail, you have done well. Captain Bear roared. 5 Lord of Heaven, get ready to protect this friend and let him go through the tribulation. What? Captain Xiong's words shocked many people. How could such a strange idea not shock everyone? Going through the tribulation in front of so many starry sea demons was basically equivalent to sacrificing oneself to help others. Without any hesitation, heavenly lords immediately surrounded him. Among them, Heavenly Lord of Dharma Pattern was one of them. Thank you, everyone. Yi Tianyun flew to Captain Bear's side. At this time, there were no more starry sea demons around. We should be the ones thanking you. Daring to do this is already worthy of our admiration. Captain Bear did not say anything else. The other Lord of Heaven did the same, their eyes filled with gratitude. No matter what the result was, Yi Tianyun had established a high and mighty image in their hearts. Lord of Heaven nodded at Yi Tianyun. His participation was enough to show his sincerity. After all, the situation was so critical that even if they rushed out, they might not be able to return. Then I'm going to activate the barrier and fly out. Everyone, get ready. The Lord of Heaven's guards were not few, there were no less than 10 of them. It could be said that an ordinary number of guards would be used to send Yi Tianyun out in the most violent way possible. As for the internal situation, they would have to rely on them. All of them had solemn expressions on their faces, and they were fully prepared. Immediately after, Captain Tree waved his hand and the shield in the air disappeared. A large number of Star Ocean demons pounced forward. At that moment, Captain Tree and Captain Bear quickly opened up a path in front of them. The other 10 Lord of Heaven did the same. They all charged forward in a frenzy. Like a meat grinder, they kept spinning, forcibly opening up an opening. Seizing this opportunity, Yi Tianyun quickly flew out and killed his way into the interior of the Star Sea Demon. Now that they were inside the Star Sea Demon, they were surrounded by densely packed Star Sea Demons. They could not see the situation outside at all. It was enough to show that the number of Star Sea Demons was probably more than a few 100,000, right? Level up. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he quickly leveled up. Ding. Experience successfully deducted. Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to the 7th Refining Earth Lord cultivation level. Kaboom! As soon as he successfully leveled up, a thick tribulation cloud immediately appeared in the sky. When this tribulation cloud was about to be released, it felt that there were Star Sea Demons all around and was instantly enraged. Rumble. The heavens' tribulation began to roar crazily. Countless thick heavenly lightning and heavenly fire began to rise, and it became more and more terrifying. This power continued to condense and become stronger. First, it doubled, then quadrupled, eightfold, it kept jumping up, and the terrifying energy made one's scalp go numb. This meant that Yi Tianyun was also enduring a terrifying power. Whether or not he could withstand it was another matter. Prepare to evacuate. When Captain Tree and the others saw this terrifying tribulation cloud, their faces changed. They had never seen such a terrifying heavens tribulation before. Usually, they would hide and undergo the tribulation. Who would undergo the tribulation in front of so many people? Usually, they would only see a few people or dozens of people. Now, there were hundreds of thousands of Star Sea Demons here. Even if there were only tens of thousands of Star Sea Demons in the area, it would still be an unimaginable amount of energy. Everyone can leave now. Yi Tianyun gestured. But if you leave now, won't you be immediately exposed to the Star Sea Demons' attacks? They didn't leave immediately. At least, they waited for the heavens' tribulation to come crashing down before they left quickly. If they were killed by the Star Sea Demons along the way, then the heavens' tribulation would quickly disperse. If the person undergoing the tribulation died, then there was naturally no need for the heavens' tribulation to exist. At that time, this plan would be equivalent to a failure, and everything would be in vain. They would continue to fall into a whirlpool of danger. It's about time. We just need to let these Star Sea Demons surround us. Yi Tianyun hurriedly said. Captain Tree and Captain Bear glanced at each other. Then, they immediately obeyed Yi Tianyun's words and quickly flew back into the spirit ship. Just as they flew back, they immediately closed the enchantment barrier, blocking the Star Sea Demons outside. Even so, many Star Sea Demons had already burrowed in. There were tens of thousands of Star Sea Demons, and they densely packed the entire place. During this period, many cultivators had suffered heavy casualties. Without the help of the Lord of Heaven, they would naturally fall into a predicament. What kind of damned plan is this? It caused me to be seriously injured. One of them was lying on the side. There wasn't a single piece of flesh on his body that wasn't injured, and he looked very miserable. That's right. Wouldn't it be fine if we just held on here for a while? Who knows, they might retreat. Now we're all done for. If that kid doesn't have any effect, then everything we did will be in vain. The other one was also in great pain. He had lost an arm, so how could he not be angry? Peng peng. These two people were kicked into the sky by a figure, and then they were eaten up by the star sea demons that swooped down, scaring the surrounding people. What a bunch of trash. You don't have any ability, yet you're still grumbling. The one who had attacked was actually the divine Emperor Yu Qin. Without hesitation, he had kicked the two trash into the sky. You, what are you doing? The nearby cultivators were dumbfounded. Were they trying to kill each other? Nothing much. I just can't stand people making sarcastic remarks. You don't have any ability, so you're shouting here. This plan has a 90% chance of survival, but if you don't carry it out, you'll definitely die. The divine Emperor Yu Qin said coldly. A bunch of trash. With just your bit of ability, you want to become a powerhouse? You'll have a share in becoming idiots. The nearby cultivators were immediately angered. Just as they were about to say something, Captain Tree's voice exploded from the side. If it wasn't for this lady, I would have already attacked. Captain Tree said coldly. You don't have any sense of the big picture. Selfish. Whoever dares to spout nonsense, I'll immediately throw him out to feed the Starsea demons. Chapter 1068. The return of the Lord of Heaven immediately eased the tension and brought the situation under control. Many people were unhappy with Yi Tianyun's actions, but they could only endure it. What else could they say when the captains were so overbearing? They could only hope that Yi Tianyun really succeeded. Otherwise, they would all die here. You must succeed. The divine Emperor Yu Qin looked at the flashing lightning outside, her beautiful eyes filled with anticipation. It was not that she was afraid of death, but she felt that Yi Tianyun was so courageous that he should not die. This made her recall the past, and the scenes flashed through her mind. She used to be this kind of person, but as time passed, everything had changed, and she had become numb. The passion and enthusiasm she once had, all of that no longer existed. She had thought that there were no such fools in this world. Who knew that there really was one here, and a super fool at that. Now, Yi Tianyun was shouldering the lives of many experts. Whether he lived or died depended on whether he could persevere. The power of this heavenly tribulation is really terrifying. I'm afraid it is close to the later stage of the Lord of Heaven, right? The power of the heavenly tribulation was not particularly shocking. But it was good in that it could pierce through all enemies and kill them in a chain, and its range was extremely wide. Compared to Captain Tree and the others, it was many times stronger. They could not compare at all to its terrifying range. Otherwise, when they heard that Yi Tianyun had triggered the heavenly tribulation, they would not immediately choose to lead him out of the encirclement. When the surrounding Starsea demons felt the terrifying heavenly tribulation, they were so scared that they fled to the side. Some of them even sprinted towards him, trying to tear him to pieces. As long as they killed Yi Tianyun, the heavenly tribulation would immediately dissipate. You want to kill me? You are still too young. Yi Tianyun held the Tianchen divine spear in his hand, and instantly turned into an evil demon god. Terrifying flames covered his body, especially the black flames that were stacked with the sacred sky-burning flame. When they touched the Starsea demons, they were immediately burned to ashes. For a time, no matter how many Starsea demons there were, they couldn't get close to him. As soon as they got close, they were immediately burned to death outside, turning into a huge wave of experience. If he was alone, there would definitely be no problem. If he couldn't win, then he could run. This wasn't difficult at all. But the problem was that he needed to save everyone on the spirit ship, so he naturally wouldn't run away. It wasn't that he was being kind, but it was a waste of time to fly such a long distance. He's here. Boom. The thick heavenly thunder finally exploded, piercing through many star ocean demons in one breath. Large swathes of star ocean demons were struck into charcoal, and they couldn't be more dead. Almost in an instant, the densely packed Starsea demons were blasted open. At least 1,000 of them died. This was the first time the heavenly lightning had struck. After piercing through a large number of Starsea demons, it smashed into Yi Tianyun's body. Boom. Yi Tianyun felt a stabbing pain, as if his body had been ruthlessly attacked. Looking down, he saw that his body was charred black. It was truly a tragic sight. But he quickly revolved the longevity set to rapidly restore his injuries. Sure enough, an enraged heavenly tribulation is really powerful. It's just that it doesn't give me any experience at all. This is too much of a scam. Yi Tianyun was more concerned about experience. He didn't obtain any experience from the star sea demons that were killed by the heavenly lightning. It was obvious that this heavenly tribulation had nothing to do with him, so he didn't obtain any experience at all. If he was allowed to slaughter to his heart's content, he would have already risen to the level of the Lord of Heaven. Unfortunately, he could only dodge and guide the heavenly tribulation to attack other places. Rumble, 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 the heavenly tribulation roared constantly, bombarding the direction where Yi Tianyun was flying. Wherever it went, there were countless deaths and injuries. Large swathes of star sea demons died at a speed visible to the naked eye. This speed was amazing, far faster than when they were killing the star sea demons. At this time, the cultivators below the spirit ship felt their hearts in their throats. They were all extremely nervous. If Yi Tianyun couldn't withstand the attacks of the star sea demons or the attacks of the heavenly tribulation, then everything would be considered a failure. But now, it seemed that he could still withstand it. Large swathes of star sea demons were killed, making them want to cheer. It was just that they also had to deal with the star sea demons inside, so they didn't have the leisure to watch the situation outside. But with Yi Tianyun's movement, this area changed drastically. Many star sea demons changed their targets and didn't continue to attack the spirit ship. As time passed, the heavenly lightning and heavenly fire that Yi Tianyun had to withstand became more and more ferocious, but he was able to persist. He constantly guided the attacks towards the star sea demons, and at the same time, he constantly killed them to obtain more experience. He wouldn't waste so many star sea demons. Killing them was equivalent to earning experience. If this continued, he wouldn't feel any pressure at all to break through to the 8th refinement Earthlord realm. Under his guidance, these star sea demons were also frightened into fleeing in all directions, not daring to approach at all. They were finally afraid. In the blink of an eye, thousands of them had died. How could they not be afraid? Originally, they weren't afraid, but now it was hard to not be afraid. They all fled to the side. But how could Yi Tianyun let them go? He chased them and shouted, "What are you running for? Weren't you pretty arrogant before? Come and fight with me now." Yi Tianyun sneered. The heavenly divine spear in his hand kept attacking. Every spear strike killed a few star sea demons. He didn't know how many star sea demons he had killed. His experience was about to break through to the 8th refinement Earthlord realm. When he chased all the way, he suddenly saw a golden light flashing in front of him, causing him to subconsciously look over. From afar, he saw a small golden star sea demon flying at the side, its eyes revealing a fierce glint. Star Overlord, a young star overlord with the 5th refinement Earthlord realm cultivation. It has the ability to control star sea demons and has a strong defense. Earthlord realm cultivation has the hardness of a heavenly Tao level treasure, difficult to destroy. Great, I finally see Master. I didn't expect it to be a guy who was just born not long ago, coming here to cause trouble. Yi Tianyun's eyes flickered. If he killed this guy, then these star sea demons would definitely leave and not continue to gather here. But he didn't want to kill it. Instead, he chose to subdue it. This guy's cultivation wasn't high. If it was a divine monarch, it would retreat. But now, it was an Earthlord realm cultivation. If he could subdue it, he would basically be able to do whatever he wanted in the Star Sea. Chapter 1069. After locking on to the Star Overlord, Yi Tianyun quickly rushed towards it. When it realized that it was being targeted, it quickly fled to the side. At the same time, it issued an order for the surrounding Star Sea demons to stop it. Its cultivation was obviously the same as theirs, but it could control them. This was the bloodline of a king. Its entire body was golden, and it looked like an overlord, far surpassing the other Star Sea demons. Want to leave? Not so easy. Yi Tianyun's figure flashed, and he instantly moved to the side of the Star Overlord. He swung the long spear in his hand and stabbed it fiercely, not showing any mercy. Squeak, squeak. The Star Overlord was shocked by the sudden appearance of Yi Tianyun. It hurriedly waved the wings in its hand to block, like a golden shield. Boom. The Star Overlord was blasted away. The violent power only left a shallow mark on the body of the Star Overlord. It did not penetrate this terrifying defense. As expected of a super-strong defense. I used most of my strength, but I only left a shallow mark on it. Yi Tianyun was a little surprised. Although he had expected it, he was still shocked. These guys were too hard, and it was difficult to easily penetrate this defense. Squeak, squeak. The Star Overlord screamed, its voice full of anger, and it signaled the Star Sea Demons beside it to pounce on it. Yi Tianyun grinned, and at this moment, he actually smiled. Boom. The terrifying heavenly thunder came at this time, piercing through a large number of Star Sea Demons. At the same time, it also hit the body of the Star Overlord. The Star Overlord screamed and flew to the side, its body charred black. After enduring the fierce attack comparable to the later stage of the Lord of Heaven, this guy only looked charred black, and it did not suffer much. However, it still felt very uncomfortable to be hit by such a terrifying attack. Yi Tianyun waved his hand and pierced the heavenly lightning with his spear, easily dispersing the heavenly lightning. Thank you for helping to block it. Smiling, Yi Tianyun extended his hand to grab the nearly unconscious Starfall Overlord. At the same time, he activated his capture skill. A faint light quickly enveloped the Overlord of Stars, wanting to take it in as a pet. The Overlord of Constellation, who sensed the abnormality, began to twist and resist Yi Tianyun's grasp. This strong resistance made it difficult for Yi Tianyun to capture him. Not willing to surrender? Let's see how long you can last. Yi Tianyun's heavenly tribulation wasn't over yet. With a single strike of his spear, he sent the Overlord of Stars flying into the sky. Following that, the heavenly lightning struck down viciously, sending the Overlord of Stars flying again. Yet another scar appeared on its body. If this were to continue, it would still be hacked to death. On the surface, there didn't seem to be any problems. However, the condition of his body had become extremely serious. Dense heavenly lightning was constantly circulating within his body. If this continued, there would be no problem on the outside, but the inside would be heavily damaged. The Star Sea Demons on the side quickly rushed over, wanting to save their king. However, with a sweep of his spear, Yi Tianyun easily killed them all. Are you still willing to surrender? Yi Tianyun extended his hand to grab it again. The Overlord of Stars struggled again. No matter what, it wouldn't let Yi Tianyun capture it. A king was a king. After all, it had its own dignity. It wasn't willing to be captured by a human as a pet. It seems that you don't think that I'm qualified to be your master. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. It was very likely that his strength wasn't enough to convince the other party. Naturally, it wouldn't accept Yi Tianyun as its master. The Overlord of Stars' eyes were cold. It still had that arrogant look in its eyes. It didn't lower its head. As a king, it would rather die than submit to an existence weaker than itself. In that case, I'll let you see my strength. Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold. With a twist of the celestial divine spear in his hand, a violent power was released from his body. Crazy damage mode, activate. The violent power exploded in his hand. Combined with the violent heaven technique, it instantly reached 74 times the strength. The celestial divine spear in his hand released a dazzling light. Under the support of the terrifying power, the celestial divine spear began to tremble, as if it would explode at any time. The Overlord of Stars immediately sensed danger. It flapped its wings to block. Boom! The terrifying power blasted its wings and sent it flying. A large hole was torn in its wings, and its body was almost pierced through. The violent power condensed at one point surpassed the power of the heavenly tribulation. After all the power was condensed at one point. It was impossible for it to be weak. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The Overlord of Stars screamed. Its voice was filled with fear. It didn't expect Yi Tianyun to explode with such terrifying power. Even the defense that it was so proud of was broken. With a strength of 64 times or even more powerful, the defense of the Overlord of Stars could still be pierced by him. If you don't surrender, then the next spear will be on your head. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand and continued to cover the Overlord of Stars. He wanted to continue to capture it. If the Overlord of Stars insisted on not surrendering, he will definitely pierce it with his spear. Since he can't keep it as his pet, then there is no need to keep it. He can only kill it in one breath and then solve the problem here. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The Overlord of Stars didn't struggle this time. It relented and let Yi Tianyun keep it as his pet. Yi Tianyun smiled with satisfaction when he saw this. That's right, as long as you follow me, I promise to make you stronger. Yi Tianyun smiled. He can see that the Overlord of Stars is quite strong. As long as it is cultivated, it will be a powerful help. Successfully subdued the Overlord of Stars, super rare. Reward, 1 trillion EXP, 10 million crazy points, 5 million capture mastery point. Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for reaching the 8th refining Earth Lord breakthrough standard. Choose to break through? No need for the time being. Now that the heavenly tribulation has not been completely completed, how can he continue to cross the heavenly tribulation immediately? After subduing the Overlord of Stars, Yi Tianyun immediately ordered the Overlord of Stars to let the sea demons retreat quickly. Sure enough, under the command of the Overlord of Stars, they left one after another and did not continue to stay here. Finally left. Yi Tianyun breathed a sigh of relief. He has consumed too much energy now. If he continues to fight, he won't be able to hold on for too long. At the same time, the situation inside the spirit ship. The sea demons are basically wiped out. The star sea demons outside quickly disappeared. However, Yi Tianyun's heavenly tribulation is not over yet. The heavenly tribulation must last for several days before it can be completely over. Then let's end it now. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he slammed his spear up. Boom, the thick heavenly tribulation was once again blown up by him. Chapter 1070. The heavenly tribulation was easily destroyed. The power that Yi Tianyun erupted with was very strong. Naturally, he could easily destroy the heavenly tribulation. Especially since he had resisted so many heavenly tribulations, the power was naturally not as strong as when he had attacked immediately. However, the effect was similar. After breaking the heavenly tribulation, the star power quickly descended and bathed his body, giving him more star power and strengthening his body. No matter what, he had to continue breaking the heavenly tribulation like before. That way, he could maximize the benefits. It's over. Yi Tianyun heaved a sigh of relief and quickly put the Star Overlord back into his pet space. He could not let others see the Star Overlord. Otherwise, people would suspect that the Star Overlord was on his side. Although he did not mind what these people thought, it was better to avoid trouble. Looking at the Star Sea demons quickly leaving, he felt that it was a pity. If they could line up in front of him to be killed, his level would definitely rise rapidly. After all, the difference in cultivation was not that big, so he could obtain more experience. If he killed those Star Lords, his hands would go limp and he would not be able to level up. If he broke through to the Lord of Heaven, killing these Earth Lords would not be very meaningful. He would need to kill many of them. Not to mention the Lord of Heaven, even Yi Tianyun felt a headache when he saw the long list of experience points. Killing one would give him 100 billion experience points. If he wanted to level up, he would need to kill tens of thousands. Right now, he was only at the Earth Lord level. If he reached the Lord of Heaven level, he would not need to kill hundreds of thousands or even millions. Indeed, the further he went, the harder it was to level up. Yi Tianyun turned and flew back to the spirit ship. Without the Star Sea demons wrapped around it, he could clearly see that the spirit ship was in shambles. There were many damages on it. It looked like there were many places that were about to be pierced. Fortunately, he stood up in time. Otherwise, he would have been finished. Without the protection of the spirit ship, these cultivators would die without a doubt. Even if he had a spirit ship, it would be useless. After all, his spirit ship was definitely not as good as Captain Tree's. In the blink of an eye, he would be destroyed without any defense. At this time, he could see that within the spirit ship, Not all of the star sea monsters had been killed. But they were still scurrying about in all directions. Without the control of the Overlord of Stars, they were like headless flies, scurrying everywhere. Right now, he could only wait to be slaughtered. He didn't have any lethality. Of course, if they were forced into a corner, they would still pounce forward and attack. Activate the barrier. They've already been chased away. Yi Tianyun indicated for them to activate the barrier. After Captain Tree and the others saw the situation outside, they were overjoyed and immediately activated the spirit formation barrier. Following that, those star sea demons quickly fled, not daring to stay here any longer. After the star sea demons fled, the group of people sat on the ground, their faces filled with laughter and tears. It was a narrow escape from death, but they managed to pull through. It's over, it's finally over. I thought I was dead for sure, yeah, I thought I died here. I didn't even report to the Grade 2 God Domain. It's such a waste to die here. That's right, it's all because of his help. If not for him, we would all be dead. All eyes were on Yi Tianyun. If he hadn't attracted the heavenly tribulation and chased away those star sea demons, they would already be dead. Although they had suffered heavy losses, at least they weren't completely wiped out. Speaking of which, it's really shameful. Our cultivations are relatively high, but we were saved by a junior. Captain Tree shook his head. He felt a little helpless, but more than that, he rejoiced. If he hadn't brought Yi Tianyun up, they would really be finished. Right now, they didn't have anyone who could attract the heavenly tribulation. Even if they could they withstand such a powerful heavenly tribulation? In other words, the heavenly tribulation wasn't the main point. The main point was that Yi Tianyun could withstand the strengthened heavenly tribulation, otherwise, everything would be nonsense, and any plans would be wasted. That's right, this is a young hero. Captain Bear and the rest looked at Yi Tianyun and were extremely grateful. The Rock Dragon Lord of Heaven was ashamed. After thinking for a while, he gritted his teeth and walked over. He lowered his head and said, Lord Tianyun, I'm sorry. I'm extremely sorry for my rudeness just now. I, the Rock Dragon Lord of Heaven, always know what's right and what's wrong. You've saved me this time. If you need anything in the future, feel free to tell me. As long as it's within my means, I'll do it for you. The Rock Dragon Lord of Heaven took the initiative to apologize. This surprised Yi Tianyun. He didn't expect such an arrogant cultivator to lower his head. It seemed like this person was a little prejudiced, but he was even more respectful towards experts. That's right. You saved our lives, so I owe you one. If you need anything, feel free to tell me. As long as it's not too difficult, I'll do it for you. That's right. Me too, I owe you a favor. All of them expressed their gratitude. This was a huge favor. All cultivators were like this. After being saved, they would leave behind a thought. If they didn't understand it, it would sometimes form an inner demon. Of course, to some evil people, saving them was equivalent to killing them. They didn't owe anyone anything. If he saved them, he would only be treated as a fool. Little brother, the two of us won't say much. We'll just keep running back and forth in this star domain. If you want to pass through the star domain, just let us know and we'll definitely send you over. Even if you bring friends, we won't take a single cent. Yes, at the same time, if you need anything, feel free to tell us. If we can help you, we'll definitely not refuse. Each of them was more heroic than the other. The feeling of surviving a disaster was too wonderful. They almost died here. No matter what, they had to return this favor. Yes, if there's anything, I'll ask for your help. Yi Tianyun smiled. Everyone was sincere. He could see their favorability skyrocketing. As long as he didn't ask them to die, they would do it for him. Successfully completed side quest. Reward, 100 billion EXP, 10 million crazy points, 5 million proficiency points, 1000 prestige point. Also, you got a chance to enter the Divine Realm Lottery Roulette. At the same time, they also completed a small quest and got a little reward, which was a pleasant surprise. Then they began to heal their injuries. The consumption was amazing. Some of them even suffered serious injuries, so they had to recover quickly. At the same time, Captain Tree and the others began to repair the spirit ship. After all, it was so damaged. If they didn't repair it, it would be difficult to cross the star domain. I didn't expect you to be a good person. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin walked to Yi Tianyun and said with a smile. Yi Tianyun saw her smile and remembered that it was the first time she smiled, which made him feel a little strange. What, do you think I'm a tyrant? Yes. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin answered very straightforwardly. Chapter 1071. Yi Tianyun looked for a place to sit down and rest. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin sat down next to him, as if worried that he would run away. Yi Tianyun raised his eyebrows and frowned. What? Are you afraid that I'll run away? I'm not afraid. What does it have to do with me where you go? The Divine Emperor Yu Qin said indifferently, I'm just here to restore my energy. Is there a problem? That's not a problem. Yi Tianyun shrugged and no longer paid attention to the Divine Emperor Yu Qin. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin sat on the side and didn't say anything to him. He was really restoring his energy. Although she didn't seem injured, her energy consumption wasn't low. With so many star sea monsters, she couldn't hide even if she wanted to. She could only brace herself and face them. She had killed many of them, but she didn't know anyone else. Naturally, she meditated next to him. This action attracted the attention of many people. They didn't think that Yi Tianyun would know this powerhouse. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin's performance had far surpassed everyone's expectations. It was comparable to Yi Tianyun's. This caused them to doubt their lives. They wondered if they had lived their lives in vain. They were both Earth monarchs, so how could the difference be so great? After resting for several days, Captain Tree and the others repaired the spirit ship. Before long, they flew back, all of them frowning. Captain Tree, what's the situation? Captain Bear asked as he saw that Captain Tree's situation wasn't right. What situation could there be? The spirit ship has been severely damaged. It seems that there is no way to pass through the sea of stars. I estimate that if several waves hit it, the spirit ship will be sent flying away. Captain Tree shook his head and sighed. It seems that we can only return the way we came. He looked up at the crowd and said, let's return the way we came. The spirit ship must be repaired, but we don't have the ability to repair it. Or, is there anyone here who is a divine inscription master? It doesn't have to be a high rank. A first-grade divine inscription master is enough. The god seal that was repaired was not of a very high level. All of them shook their heads. How could it be so easy to become a first-grade divine engraving master? First-grade divine seal, right? Yi Tianyun stood up and asked. Yes. Could it be? Captain Tree's eyes lit up. Yes, I'm a grade 1 divine inscriber. My level isn't high, but repairing some simple divine seals isn't a problem. Yi Tianyun was currently a first-grade divine inscription master. Of course, if he wanted to level up, it wouldn't be a problem. As long as he threw in some proficiency, he could easily level up. You're also a first-grade divine engraving master? The Divine Emperor Yu Qin was a bit surprised. This was a bit beyond her expectations. Although he was only a first-grade divine engraving master, one couldn't forget that there were still great realms in front of him, and that was called divine inscription master. Their realms were completely different, and their cultivation was so strong that it made her wonder if he was the reincarnation of an expert. Of course, she was the reincarnation of a powerhouse, but she hadn't mastered the power of divine inscriptions in her previous life. She was only an alchemist, so the significance was different. After all, she had the burning heaven's sacred flame. Without a doubt, she was the best choice for an alchemist. Is there a problem? Yi Tianyun looked at her and asked. No problem. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin shook his head. He just felt that it was incredible. Then hurry up and help me repair it. Captain Tree was excited. He grabbed Yi Tianyun and flew towards the spirit ship, leaving behind a group of cultivators looking at each other in dismay. Among them, the Lord of Heaven and the others didn't know what to say. They had even asked Yi Tianyun to join them, but now it seemed that they were too naive. Let alone joining them, with this level, even joining a second-grade god domain wouldn't be a problem. No wonder he doesn't want to join us. Just based on this ability, I guess he wants to join a second-grade god domain. That's right, this is the gap between people. There's no way to compare them. I thought he didn't know what's good for him. Now it seems that he's too low profile. They all shook their heads, thinking that they were overthinking. Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch, I think I've heard of him somewhere. It sounds familiar. One of the cultivators seemed to have thought of something, and after thinking for a while, a look of terror appeared in his eyes. I was chatting with a friend. That friend is a grade 1 god realm, and he participated in the recent ascending battle. The one who won first place seemed to be called Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch. I remember this too. The one who won first place in the Divine Domain Ascension battle was indeed called Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch. I heard that he's very powerful. No wonder when I heard his introduction, I felt that he sounded familiar, but I couldn't recall where. Could he really be Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch? It can't be. Don't tell me he has the same name. All of them were shocked. They all thought about the Divine Domain Ascension battle. They were all itinerant cultivators. They didn't have the qualifications to participate in the Divine Domain Ascension battle, so they didn't know who Yi Tianyun was. Now that they thought of something, their hearts trembled. If he won first place, why would they invite him to join them? Wouldn't that be asking for trouble? But he didn't say he won first place in the Divine Domain Ascension battle. He even said he was going to the second grade God domain. He's keeping a low profile. Do you understand? Who cares? We'll just ask him when he comes back. The news about Yi Tianyun spread quickly. On the other hand, no one talked about the Divine Emperor Yu Qin who won second place. But since he was captured, he naturally wouldn't be in the discussion. Soon, Yi Tianyun repaired it. Captain Tree kept praising him. That's amazing. I thought I was going to return. I didn't expect Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch to repair the Divine Seal. This level of skill is really enviable. If Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch didn't join any forces, I wonder if he could join us. As long as you join us, I guarantee you'll get many benefits. Our faction is quite popular. Captain Tree even extended an invitation. But after saying that, he felt that the atmosphere was not right. When he turned to look at the crowd, he found that they had strange expressions. What's wrong? Captain Tree asked. Cough, cough, cough. Captain Bear coughed lightly. He walked over and looked at Yi Tianyun. Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch, are you the first place in the Divine Domain Ascension battle? The Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch who won first place in the Divine Domain Ascension battle? Captain Tree stared at Yi Tianyun as if he had seen a ghost. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes. It seemed that his identity had been exposed. He thought that no one knew. Sure enough, he had to change his name to keep a low profile. Yes, I'm Heavenly Cloud Earthly Monarch who won the Divine Domain Ascension battle. Yi Tianyun thought for a while and did not deny anything. Chapter 1072. It's really the champion of the Divine Realm Ascension battle. One by one, they stood up in shock. His value far surpassed everyone present. That's right, surpassed everyone. Even the tree captain couldn't compare. Even if his cultivation was not as good as Captain Tree's, his future was definitely much brighter than Captain Tree's. Don't look at how many Lord of Heaven there were. Some of them broke through to the Lord of Heaven at the 3rd or 4th refinement, but their standard was very average. Even Captain Tree broke through to the Lord of Heaven at the 6th refinement, so the difference between him and Yi Tianyun was too great. His level was enough to join a second-grade god realm, but it was basically impossible for him to be nurtured by Yi Tianyun. After all, Captain Tree had already missed the Golden Period, which was the Earth Monarch period. For a second-grade god realm, a high-level Earth Monarch was the most valuable. A 5th or 6th refinement Earth Monarch was really not worth looking at. A Lord of Heaven that didn't break through to the 8th or 9th refinement Earth Monarch level was too low in value. If Yi Tianyun had said this before, no one would have paid attention to him. They felt that he was definitely bragging. Now that he had saved the entire spirit ship, it had to be credible. This is the champion of the Divine Realm Ascension battle. I can brag to my friends for a lifetime. He's really amazing. The person who obtained first place is really different. That's right, my friend said that the Divine Realm Ascension battle standard is average. Now I can go back and refute him. He's so strong, and he's also a first-grade divine carving master. When I first saw him, I knew he must be a super powerhouse. Bullshit. I didn't even bother to look at you before, but when I first saw you, the atmosphere of the entire spirit ship became lively. After all, the appearance of a famous person naturally aroused discussion. It just so happened that they had almost recovered, so they had extra energy to discuss. The feeling of surviving a disaster was more to relax. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin glanced at them indifferently and didn't say anything. He had been meditating to recover. She was too lazy to care about these things and returned to her previous arrogant appearance. No one would try to strike up a conversation with her. Her action of throwing the man out was truly shocking. If he were to be thrown out after trying to strike up a conversation, that would be terrible. Especially since he was so strong, no one dared to talk to him. I didn't expect earthly monarch Tianyun to really be the champion of the ascending battle. Just pretend that you didn't hear my previous invitation, Captain Tree said awkwardly. It's fine. Thank you, Captain Tree, for the invitation. However, I already have a force to join. I'm really sorry. Yi Tianyun felt very apologetic. He then turned his head and said to the Lord of Heaven, Lord of Heaven, I'm also very sorry for rejecting you earlier. Yi Tianyun's attitude made them feel very comfortable. He was extremely humble, unlike those super geniuses who were extremely arrogant, which made them look down on them. After chatting with them for a while, Captain Tree dismissed them and prepared to move on. Yi Tianyun also returned to the side of the Divine Emperor Yu Qin and sat down. He still had many questions that he didn't have time to ask before. Now, he could slowly ask them. Heavenly Monarch, Earthly Monarch. No, I don't think that's your real name, right? Yi Tianyun transmitted a voice transmission. Just call me Earthly Monarch Yu Qin. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin glanced at him indifferently and transmitted a voice transmission. I know what you want to ask, but I won't say it. You'd better hide well. Otherwise, if you get caught, it'll have nothing to do with me. Yi Tianyun knew that she wouldn't say it. He wasn't surprised. Why didn't you choose to catch me? If you were to be found out, wouldn't you be punished? Yi Tianyun continued. Punished? What benefits could there be? Unless they see me and don't catch you and bring you back. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin looked at him and transmitted a sound transmission. The problem is, who knows? Unless you go back and tell them. That's true. Then take your time to wander around. Yi Tianyun didn't bother to continue asking. In any case, the other party wasn't interested in telling him, so he also didn't bother asking too much. Following that, Captain Tree began to control the spirit ship and rapidly flew towards their destination. Although it hadn't been completely repaired, it wouldn't be a problem for them to pass through the land of stars. As the spirit ship moved, if they continued to stay here, they could only pass their days by cultivating. Soon, the spirit ship passed through an area of rubble and entered a strange area. Looking around, there was a special water body all around. But this water body was incomparably dark. The spirit ship sailed directly above it. Sitting on the spirit ship, Yi Tianyun could clearly feel the bottom of the spirit ship constantly shaking. It really felt like it was being pushed by layers of waves. Although these weren't waves, the effect was similar. If a cultivator fell down, it would be fatal. They would be directly swallowed up by the starry sea, and it would be difficult to escape. If one's cultivation was too low, they wouldn't be able to climb up after falling down. However, everything was very stable. There weren't any major problems. Originally, the biggest problem was the starry sea monsters. Since the starry sea monsters had been killed, there shouldn't be any problems. Unless the spirit ship suddenly broke down, there shouldn't be any accidents. I advise you to stay in the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm for a while. That way, you won't be captured. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin suddenly transmitted a sound transmission. After a while, they won't bother to pay attention to you. After all, if you hide inside, although they are overbearing, they won't forcefully take you away. Yi Tianyun's eyelids lifted. After looking at her for a moment, he faintly smiled. I didn't know that you cared about people. What's in it for you? Of course, there are benefits. I can stay outside for a while, and I don't have to go back immediately. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin's answer made him feel a little speechless. He thought that he would reply that he was a good person, so they wouldn't capture him. Who knew that it was for his freedom? However, Yi Tianyun immediately caught the point. His eyes narrowed, and he probed, "So, you're being controlled?" The Divine Emperor Yu Qin's eyes turned cold. He stared at him and said, "I'm not being controlled. I just owe them a favor, and I haven't paid it back yet. Don't ask about these things. Just hide. If you're captured, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape for the rest of your life." Yi Tianyun shrugged and faintly smiled. "I think that no one can capture me now. Now that I think about it, you escaped the pursuit of the divine beast in the starfield. How did you do that?" The Divine Emperor Yu Qin suddenly remembered this matter. "Tell me the details, and I'll tell you about the situation here. You can choose for yourself." Yi Tianyun smiled. Chapter 1073. Of course, the Divine Emperor Yu Qin wouldn't take the bait. If Yi Tianyun didn't tell her the solution, she wouldn't say anything else. Compared to Yi Tianyun's method of escape, it was even more impossible for her to reveal her own situation. After all, Yi Tianyun's method would definitely not be explained in detail, and he might not even be able to learn it. For example, if it was some kind of special treasure, if she didn't have it, it would be useless even if she knew. "It's fine if you don't want to say it." The Divine Emperor Yu Qin couldn't be bothered with him. He closed his eyes and rested. Yi Tianyun was also too lazy to say anything more. If they didn't get along, half a sentence would be too much. Captain Tree controlled the spirit ship to slowly move forwards, not too fast or too slow. In their current situation, it was already good enough that they could move. They didn't need to arrive at an extremely fast speed. "We'll be able to leave in a few days, so don't be too nervous. It looks like the Star Sea Demon won't appear again, so everyone relax a little." Captain Tree's voice rang out. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. They were no longer as vigilant and nervous as before. From the beginning, Yi Tianyun was not worried that there would be more Star Sea Demons. Unless another Star Overlord came, it was unlikely that there would be a large number of Star Sea Demons attacking. The Overlord of Stars had attacked them purely because he had nothing better to do and was too playful. That was why he had sent so many Star Sea Demons to attack. This was the truth that Yi Tianyun learned when he communicated with the Overlord of Constellation. When he heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He didn't think that they would think it was fun, so they came to kill for fun. Of course, this was the same logic as when cultivators hunted demonic beasts. For cultivators, it was no different from killing for fun. There was nothing much to say about this. Different races naturally meant different situations. A few days passed in the blink of an eye, and sure enough, no more Star Sea Demons appeared. Only then did some people completely heave a sigh of relief. When he looked up, he could see that there were no more rocks in front of him. This meant that he had already flown away from the starry sky. Their journey had been bumpy, and they had been hit by all kinds of rocks. Even if Captain Tree was more familiar with this place, it was still not that easy to hide. "We're out. In front of us is the finishing line, Yufan Star." At this time, the tree captain began to speed up and soon saw a planet full of jade inlaid. They didn't go down, but they could clearly see that the Yufan Star was filled with piles of jade. There were all sorts of houses made of jade that looked extremely luxurious. In fact, these jade stones were not valuable at all. They did not contain any star power and were purely decorative items. These things, which were priceless in the ordinary realm, were equivalent to dirt here, and could be found anywhere. The stellar energy in a Grade 2 God realm is indeed much denser. Yi Tianyun sensed that the stellar energy here was much denser. It was at least several times denser than when he was in a Grade 1 God realm. No wonder everyone wanted to come here to cultivate. With such rich astral powers, it was naturally a very good place for cultivation. Due to the harsh conditions, it was enough to stop a group of people. 30 low-grade reincarnation weapons were enough to stop a large group of people. Captain Tree's weapons were relatively cheap. If others didn't have more than 35, they would be kicked out. It would take a long time to accumulate. Only those who were at least Earth monarchs were qualified to take the spirit ship to the Grade 2 God realm. Some of the wealthier ones didn't intend to come to the Grade 2 God realm. Because they were unfamiliar with the place and people here, they might as well stay in the Grade 1 God realm. When they came to the Grade 2 God realm, Earth monarchs were as common as cabbages. In the Grade 1 God realm, they would still have a place, not as awkward as the Grade 2 God realm. Those who had this kind of thinking were usually the weaker ones with little ambition. The star power of a Grade 2 God realm is naturally not bad, but the Grade 3 God realm is even more amazing. The Divine Emperor Yu Qin said, "When you reach a higher level, you will realize that the things you were proud of before are only average. For example, you think that's it just because you beat me. In fact, your strength is only considered average among the Grade 3 God realms. I haven't even reached the Grade 3 God realm, and you're already giving me a blow?" Yi Tianyun said with a smile. If you're too arrogant, it'll be good for you if I give you a blow like this." The Divine Emperor Yu Qin looked around and said, "Get ready to leave." Hide well. She was already prepared to leave. Even Yu Fanstar didn't plan to go in. "Wait." Yi Tianyun stopped her. "Although I don't know what you're really thinking, it seems like you don't want to deal with me. You even reminded me. No matter what, I have to thank you." The Divine Emperor Yu Qin was stunned. She stared at him for a moment before sighing. "Indeed, under normal circumstances, I would definitely take you back. Moreover, you beat me. I can't take this lying down. But when I look at you, I see myself in the past. You can maintain a heart that isn't cold. Compared to those heartless fellows, you're much better. If it wasn't for that, I would really want to take you back. Don't think that I can't catch you. A Grade 3 God realm isn't something ordinary people can imagine." Her tone turned sharp. She wanted to explain how terrifying a Grade 3 God realm was, so that Yi Tianyun would be careful. "So that's how it is. Otherwise, I would really be taken back." Yi Tianyun smiled casually. He believed that these special things wouldn't be able to catch him. The other party might think that he couldn't imagine it, but he felt that his ability to escape was something that she couldn't imagine. Maintain a kind heart. The higher the level of the world, the less kind it will be. Take care. The next time you're caught, it might not be me. Of course, it's also possible that I won't catch you again." After saying that, she turned and flew away. Since she had already paid for the goods, she didn't need to say anything. She could leave immediately. When Captain Tree saw her leave, he didn't say anything and continued to head towards Yu Fanstar. He wasn't surprised by this kind of thing. Usually, those who did this were more familiar with this place. There was no need for them to head to Yu Fanstar. Soon, other than the Divine Emperor Yu Qin, other cultivators also left. They didn't continue to stay. At least half of the people who left were brought away by the Lord of Heaven. It was obvious that they were in cahoots. The remaining half were naturally those who had just arrived. They definitely wanted to stay on Yu Fanstar for a while longer. "Captain Tree, it's time for me to leave. We'll meet again if fate allows it." Yi Tianyun didn't plan to head to Yu Fanstar either. He wanted to head straight to the Heavenly Spring God realm. "We'll meet again if fate allows it." Captain Tree nodded and didn't say anything else. They would meet again if fate allowed it. Chapter 1074. After Yi Tianyun left, he took out his spirit ship and boarded it. He flew towards the direction indicated by the token. Normally, there would be no danger once he entered. Unless he encountered a robbery, there would not be any danger. The mission given by the Heavenly Spring Divine Territory was not difficult. It was just a simple errand. The problem was whether there were any variables along the way. For example, they definitely did not expect to encounter a star overlord in the land of stars. "I'm almost there." Yi Tianyun felt that the direction indicated by the token was not far from him. He would reach his destination soon. As he advanced, the response from the token became more and more intense. This meant that he would reach his destination soon. Sure enough, he did not go far before he saw a huge passageway in front of him. It was the same as when he went to the Divine Territory. There were special passageways. It was difficult to enter the other places. Only through these passageways could one enter the Divine Territory. When he approached, a guard immediately intercepted him. The guard blocked his way and shouted, Who are you? I'm here to report. Yi Tianyun took out the identity token and handed it over. The guard took it and checked it. Without changing his expression, he said, "Follow me." Before he brought Yi Tianyun in, he specially instructed the guard beside him before bringing Yi Tianyun in. It was enough to show how strict the security here was. It was not a place that one could casually enter as they wished. Of course, powerful existences could still casually enter. For example, if a star domain divine beast suddenly appeared in the divine territory, it would not be strange at all. Star domain divine beasts had amazing spatial bloodlines. They could travel through the divine territories as they wished. In the next moment, they could appear above their heads and devour them. This was the terrifying nature of star domain divine beasts. Fortunately, they were very rare and could not be found everywhere. If they could be found everywhere, it would probably be the world of star domain divine beasts. The other races would not have a chance to rule. Under the guard's guidance, Yi Tianyun was brought into the temple. When he came in, he found that there were quite a few other people in the temple. As far as the eye could see, they were all at the Earth Monarch realm. However, their cultivations were all at least at the 7th or 8th refinement. It could be said that there were many geniuses. Through the appraisal eye, Yi Tianyun could clearly see that their overall strength far surpassed a first-grade God realm cultivator of the same level. These are all genius disciples that were born in the divine realm? Yi Tianyun looked at them. He had seen those that were born in the divine realm before, and their foundations were indeed stronger than the others. Just because one was born in the divine realm did not mean that one would be heaven-defying. One still needed to be nurtured after birth to become a powerhouse. But in terms of starting point, he was naturally a lot stronger than Fan Yu. This is the new disciple who passed the ascending battle of the deity domain. He has just arrived. The deacon in front of the guards said. A new disciple from the ascending battle? Kun Hao Lord of Heaven looked at Yi Tianyun and nodded. Got it, let him join the team, go line up over there. The guard pointed at the small group of cultivators at the side. There were not many of them, only 4. Including Yi Tianyun, there were 5 of them. Compared to the group at the side, the difference was too big. Yi Tianyun could see that the group that he was in was all born in Fan Yu. They were all here to join the heavenly spring divine realm. However, they were all unfamiliar faces. Those who had been chosen by Elder Go Huang had probably arrived long ago, unlike him who had been dragging his feet. On the other side were experts born in the divine realm. When they heard that Yi Tianyun came from the ascending battle of the deity domain, they looked at him a few more times. Most of their eyes were filled with disdain. In their opinion, the difference between Fan Yu and the deity domain was like heaven and earth. Even if he came from the ascending battle of the deity domain, they still looked down on him. This was like a pile of trash. The one that obtained a good ranking was still the overlord of the trash. In the end, he was still trash. Hence, they looked down on him, just like how other races looked down on humans. It was almost the same thing. Feeling their disdain, Yi Tianyun did not care about it. This was unavoidable. However, as long as he did not say it out loud, no one would know that they came from Fan Yu. On the surface, there seemed to be no difference between the two. Even if one looked deeper, there was no difference. If they did not differentiate, no one would know that they came from Fan Yu. This made Yi Tianyun feel uncomfortable. If he didn't distinguish between them, their relationship wouldn't be so awkward. Of course, he knew why they needed to differentiate. It was still based on talent. The biggest difference between Fan Yu and the deity domain was naturally talent. Hence, they were differentiated. The Kun Hao Lord of Heaven glanced at them and said in a low voice, "It's about time. You can now choose which heavenly palace you want to join." He pointed to the side. There were many heavenly palace teleportation formations at the side. They were Sword Palace, Saber Palace, Axe Palace, Spear Palace, Alchemy Palace, Divine Seal Palace, God Creation Palace, and Special Palace. These were all different types of palaces with different domains. One of the palaces was very eye-catching. It was called Special Palace. No one knew what it meant. I don't need to explain the ones in front. As for the Special Palace at the back, it's actually a mix. For example, if your weapon is more niche or your ability is more niche, you can choose the special palace. If you don't find anything that suits you, just choose the special palace, the Kun Hao Lord of Heaven explained. With his explanation, everyone came to a sudden realization. It turned out to be a messy palace. The Sword Palace was very popular. Of course, it was the first choice. Most of them used swords. Now, you can choose the palace you want to join. The Kun Hao Lord of Heaven explained and let them choose for themselves. Very quickly, they swarmed forward. Most of them chose the popular palaces in front. These were all popular palaces. Only a fool would not choose them. When the 5 of them, Fan Yu, arrived and were about to choose, the Kun Hao Lord of Heaven pointed to the special palace at the side and said, "The 5 of you, go to the special palace directly." What? I specialize in swordsmanship. I should go to the Sword Palace. Yes, I practice alchemy. I should go to the Alchemy Palace. Asking us to go to the special palace doesn't suit our abilities at all. Basically, no one would choose the special palace except for them. It was just that they were forced to go. It wasn't their choice at all. If I ask you to go, then go. Don't talk so much nonsense. The Kun Hao Lord of Heaven pointed to the special palace and said, "Hurry up and get in there. Hurry. Don't force me to throw you in one by one. You're just a bunch of trash. Why are you so demanding?" Chapter 1075. Kun Hao Lord of Heaven finally revealed his true thoughts. He had been secretive before, but when it came to choosing a palace, his true thoughts were revealed. This is different from what I said before. We all used our own strength to reach this place. We have our own strength, and we won't lose to anyone. That's right. We're not trash. Our strength, even compared to the Divine Realm's powerhouses, is not the slightest bit inferior. Kun Hao Lord of Heaven, please take back your insult. We have our own choices. We want to see the Elder. They were all angry. They had worked so hard to get here, but this was the result. They did not know what a special God Palace was. Even if it was the best choice, they were not willing. Not only were they insulted, but they could not choose the palace they wanted. This was what made them angry. They did not have a choice. They could not choose a palace today, and they would not be able to choose anything else in the future. Find the Elder? Kun Hao Lord of Heaven sneered. Do you think you can see the Elder whenever you want? I am the boss here. You have to listen to me. If you don't, you will be treated as a traitor, and you will be punished with capital punishment. The long sword in his hand flickered with killing intent. The so-called capital punishment here was to directly kill them. It seemed like he wasn't lying at all. When the time came, he would definitely kill without any hesitation. When the rest of the cultivators saw this scene, they all revealed mocking smiles, but most of them were gloating over the misfortune of others. They thought there would be a good show to watch, and they liked to watch it. The cultivators from Fan Yu felt his murderous intent, and their hearts trembled. They did not doubt that they would be killed by Kun Hao Lord of Heaven. In this place, Kun Hao Lord of Heaven was the highest, and he had the power to kill gods. It would be easy for him to kill them. Kun Hao Lord of Heaven, I remember that we have not joined the Heavenly Spring God Realm, right? Yi Tianyun interrupted. Since we have not joined the Heavenly Spring God Realm, we have the right to refuse. Of course, I no longer have any interest in joining the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. I choose to leave now. Although he had already expected all kinds of rejection, being rejected here obviously made him feel extremely disgusted. Since they didn't want him here, then there was no need for him to stay here. He could do whatever he wanted. After saying that, Yi Tianyun turned around and left. They had only been brought in, not officially joined the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. Therefore, Yi Tianyun's rejection was not a problem, unless he truly joined the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. What a sharp tongue. You even know how to refute me. Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, had a cold look in his eyes. The moment you stepped into the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm, you were already a disciple of the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm. Even if you die, you will die here. I'll give you a chance. Kneel on the ground and crawl through me, and I'll forgive you for what you said. After saying that, he spread his legs wide, freeing his crotch for Yi Tianyun to squeeze through. Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven, You are too humiliating. We have never heard of anyone becoming a disciple immediately after coming in. Yes, we want to see the elder. Brother, don't crawl through. We want justice. The other four were completely enraged. Although they weren't from the same clan as Yi Tianyun, they had come from the same region. Since they were being discriminated against, how could they not be angry? Justice. I am justice. Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, was furious. Just as he was about to stab Yi Tianyun with his sword, he heard Yi Tianyun's voice. Wait, I have made up my mind, said Yi Tianyun. Have you decided to crawl through my crotch? A wise man submits to circumstances. This is the right choice. Crawl through. Who knows if I'm in a good mood and let you choose another palace? Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, laughed heartily. His legs grew bigger. The other cultivators from the divine realm shook their heads, their eyes full of disdain. They had thought that he would have some backbone, but who knew that he was just a weakling? Brother, you must not crawl through. The cultivator at the side felt insulted and immediately stood up to stop him. In the next moment, Yi Tianyun's figure flashed. His right leg seemed to have gathered all his strength and kicked fiercely between Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven's legs. Boom! Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, was directly kicked into the sky. Finally, he directly smashed into the hard wall. His legs were spread open, and the space between his legs was a mess. This wasn't just his family jewels being kicked, but his entire body was crippled. You want me to crawl under your crotch? Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Yi Tianyun looked at Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, who was paralyzed on the ground. His eyes were incomparably cold. Letting him crawl under his crotch was equivalent to an insult to him. He wasn't going to take this lying down. He was going to cripple Heavenly Lord Kun Hao without hesitation. The heavy kick was not enough to kill him, but his entire body was crippled. Without the help of divine pills, he wouldn't be able to recover quickly. Due to his cultivation, Kun Hao, the Lord of Heaven, could still recover. However, this kind of humiliation would probably accompany him for the rest of his life. You actually injured Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven. The people at the side were dumbfounded. No one expected Yi Tianyun to suddenly attack. This was a second-grade god realm. Casually attacking a deacon was equivalent to slapping his face. If they pursued this matter, it would be a terrifying matter. They would definitely chase him to the ends of the earth. Unless he joined a stronger force, that would be a different story. So what if I hit you? Those who insult me must pay the price. Yi Tianyun's eyes were cold, causing the cultivators who met his gaze to feel a chill in their hearts. After saying that, he lifted his foot and wanted to leave. However, he was quickly stopped by the cultivators in front of him. You can't leave. You injured Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven. You've offended your superiors and must be punished severely. That's right. Letting you leave is our dereliction of duty. All of them stood in front of Yi Tianyun. They wanted to take credit and show their loyalty to the heavenly spring god realm. Who said I wanted to leave? Yi Tianyun looked at them and said indifferently, I want to find the elders and clarify things. Of course, he would not simply leave. He wanted to question the elders and see what their attitude was. If they still had such an attitude, there was no need to stay. It was simply a waste of time. What's going on? At this time, the guards outside rushed in. When they saw Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven, injured and limp on the ground, their faces changed. He suddenly attacked Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven. The god realm cultivator pointed at Yi Tianyun. *T. It was Kun Hao, Lord of Heaven, who insulted him first. The Fan Yu cultivator beside Yi Tianyun retorted. Chapter 1076. The guards surrounded him. All of them were at the level of Lord of Heaven. Although they were Lord of Heaven, they were only at the first or second level of Lord of Heaven. They were not very strong. Kill them all. The guards took out their weapons and attacked Yi Tianyun without hesitation. Yi Tianyun was furious. There was no doubt that these people were in cahoots with each other. It was impossible to expect them to seek justice for him. Get lost. Yi Tianyun was merciless. He kicked one of them with one kick, and they immediately burst into a blood mist, and they couldn't be more dead than before. He did not want to kill them. Since these guys were so determined to die, they could not blame him for being rude. With a single kick, he turned a person into a bloody mist, unable to defend himself at all. Everyone was shocked. The guards who were about to pounce on Wang Xian were shocked. They did not dare to move forward. As for the other cultivators, they were even more shocked. Was he really a cultivator from Fan Yu? He killed a Lord of Heaven with one kick. Even if the Lord of Heaven was an ordinary Lord of Heaven, he was still a Lord of Heaven. However, he could not withstand the force of one kick. Who else wants to stop me? Yi Tianyun glanced at them. His aura alone was enough to force them to retreat. No one dared to stop him. When he wanted to pass through, the guards at the side gritted their teeth and stopped him. You can't go in through here. They finally stopped him. If Yi Tianyun went in, it would be equivalent to letting a dangerous person into the house. They would definitely not let him in. If they let him in and caused trouble, the punishment they would receive would be death. They might as well stop Yi Tianyun and not let him in. Even if he died, at least he could prove that he had some backbone. Yi Tianyun looked at them coldly. After a while, he said in a deep voice, "Okay, I cannot go in. But you go and inform the elder. It doesn't matter if you say that there's a dangerous person here. It doesn't matter if you say that there's something wrong here. Either I go over, or the elders come over personally." These words caused everyone to suck in a breath of cold air. To make an elder come personally, this was really arrogant. But to let Yi Tianyun go personally went against their principles. All right. The guard gritted his teeth and crushed the token in his hand. This was equivalent to sending out a distress signal. At that time, there would definitely be experts coming over. Only a portion of the guards had this kind of token, and it was used to send out a distress signal in time to prevent something serious from happening. Not long after he crushed it, the space at the side was quickly torn open. A figure walked out of the space aggressively. His divine monarch cultivation was extremely violent, as though he was the ruler of the world. Only those at the level of a divine monarch could break through space so easily and instantly teleport over. What happened? The one who walked out wasn't Elder Go Huang, but another elder from the heavenly spring divine realm. His name was Elder Shahong, and his cultivation was at God Monarch level 2. Although he was only at God Monarch level 2, it was enough to suppress a force. As soon as he came out, he looked around and saw the bloodstains on the ground, as well as the unconscious Kun Hao Lord of Heaven. He furrowed his brows. Elder Shahong, he injured Heavenly Monarch Kun Hao and even killed a few of our guard. The guard hastily ran over and explained. Hey! Elder Shahong's eyes turned to look at Yi Tianyun. His gaze was so sharp that it almost nailed Yi Tianyun to the wall. Yi Tianyun didn't feel anything at all. He still stood in the same place, completely ignoring Elder Shahong looking at him. If it were anyone else, they would have been frightened by his aura. Elder Shahong, it was that Kun Hao Lord of Heaven who humiliated us first. He even forced this brother to crawl under his crotch. Kun Hao Lord of Heaven, he forced us to join a special divine palace and didn't give us a choice. The cultivator next to him stepped forward to explain. Yi Tianyun didn't even need to explain. Someone else helped him. Yi Tianyun's kick just now was too satisfying, so he stood up to help explain. Did I allow you to speak? Elder Shahong glared at him. His oppressive aura rushed over, causing his legs to soften. He directly fell backward. He didn't expect that he wouldn't be able to stand properly just because of his aura. Everyone couldn't help but look at Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun was fine under that gaze. Wasn't the gap between them a little too big? Elder Shahong turned to look at Yi Tianyun, saying coldly, "You're quite arrogant, aren't you? Kun Hao Lord of Heaven wants you to do whatever he wants you to do. If you dare to resist, you will be sentenced to death. This rule has always been the rule of the heavenly spring divine realm. There are no exceptions." He had already said that he wanted to carry out the death penalty. He wanted to sentence him to death. Yi Tianyun laughed. What a joke. I didn't expect this to be the strongest heavenly spring divine realm. I'm really disappointed. The heavenly spring divine realm is just SOSO. I don't want to stay here. This kind of protective behavior made Yi Tianyun furious, but he could understand it. Although he understood it, He didn't need to stay in the heavenly spring divine realm anymore. Then, he turned around, wanting to leave. Elder Shahong's figure flashed, blocking his way. He said coldly, "You're here, and you still want to leave? As long as I want to leave, no one can stop me." Yi Tianyun's eyes fixed on Elder Shahong. As expected of the powerful heavenly spring divine realm, they were really arrogant. So arrogant that they could discriminate against anyone? He didn't know how valuable the first place of the battle to ascend to the heavens was, but he received such treatment here. How could he not be angry? "I want to see how you're going to escape." Elder Shahong was also angry. He had always been respected, but now someone dared to contradict him. How could he not be angry? Just as he was about to reach out his hand, the void beside him was broken. A familiar figure walked out. It was Elder Go Huang. What's going on? He actually broke the emergency token. When Elder Go Huang walked out, he saw Elder Shahong about to pinch Yi Tianyun's neck. He asked suspiciously, "Stop. Tell me, what's going on?" Elder Go Huang. When Yi Tianyun saw Elder Go Huang, he said sternly, "Elder Go Huang, I came to join the heavenly spring divine realm out of respect for your invitation. It was my honor. Who knew that you would humiliate us as soon as you arrived? You didn't allow us, the cultivators from Fan Yu, to choose any divine palace. What's the meaning of this?" Elder Go Huang furrowed his brows. He casually glanced around and roughly understood what was going on. "Elder Shahong, stop." Elder Go Huang said sternly. Elder Go Huang, he disrespected his superior. "This is the biggest rule we have," Elder Shahong said in a low voice. "He's the one I mentioned before, the first place of the battle to ascend to the heavens. He's a rare genius. Compared to the super geniuses here, he's not inferior at all." Elder Go Huang said in a low voice, "Do you think this is appropriate?" Chapter 1077. The ascending battle of the God realm only had a little bit of value, and the overall value was not very high. In the eyes of the elders and disciples of the Grade 2 God realm, only the top 10 were worth a look. But even the first place, in their eyes, could not compare to the disciples on their side, at least by a large margin. Hence, in general, it was half a joke. To put it bluntly, it was for diplomacy. This diplomacy was to build a good relationship with the Grade 1 God realm, and this was not a bad thing for them. How could a diplomatic battle not be called a joke? Hence, even when the guards saw that Yi Tianyun came from the ascending battle of the God realm, their expressions were rather indifferent, as if they were looking at an ordinary disciple, and there was not much meaning in it. Towards Elder Go Huang's words, the others were disdainful, thinking that it did not matter. But Elder Shahong's expression changed. He had heard the details of the battle, and even saw the detailed records. The elders had specially used a recording disc to record the battle, allowing him to see Yi Tianyun's battle clearly. At that time, he had immediately determined that Yi Tianyun was a genius, and must be taken in as a disciple. What Fan Yu? He actually did not care about that. It was just that he was very protective of others. As long as it was his own people, he would be very protective. If it was Yi Tianyun who got into trouble, he would be the same, extremely protective. To him, there was no meaning in helping reason or not. Similarly, he was more inflexible, and offending his superiors was very hard to forgive. If he wasn't severely punished, there might be a second time if there was a first. If there were too many like this, wouldn't the entire God realm be in chaos? Hence, he absolutely could not offend his superiors. Now that he knew that Yi Tianyun was earthly monarch Tianyun, he immediately felt very embarrassed. Previously, he was still very much looking forward to Yi Tianyun's arrival. But now, he was yelled at by himself, making him feel very awkward. Ahem. Tell me, what mistake did Lord of Heaven Kun Hao commit? Think about it carefully, it's better to understand the process. Elder Shahong coughed lightly. Such a sudden change left everyone dumbfounded. Was the title of the ascending battle of the God realm that exaggerated? Even the rule of offending his superiors was disregarded. Yi Tianyun saw the change in Elder Shahong's attitude and shook his head. Sure enough, only those with strength can be treated equally. Otherwise, he would have been killed on sight. Then, Yi Tianyun of the God Realm Monarch Tianyun's heavenly monarch Tianyun was furious. What the hell is going on? Elder Go Huang said in a stern voice. Haven't we already rectified the situation? We must treat them equally. Kun Hao, Lord Monarch Lord Heaven, broke the rules. Kun Monarch of the rules. Kun Mo's sect. Realm Monarch Heaven. Kun the guards at the side hurriedly came over and dragged Heavenly Monarch Kun Hao away. It was bad enough that he was kicked in the groin, but he still had to be locked up in the prison for 1,000 years. Who would have thought that the disciple from Fan Yu sect would have such a great reputation? The elder's face changed immediately. The other cultivators had already figured it out. They took a deep breath. No wonder Yi Tianyun was so overbearing. He had some skills. Those who were capable were often not afraid of causing trouble. Lord Tianyun, we did not manage this matter well. I hope you don't mind. Elder Go Huang Elder felt awkward. As an elder, he did not need to speak to a junior like that. However, this matter had a great impact. He could see Yi Tianyun's anger. They had spent a lot of money to recruit him. Who knew that such a thing would happen? If there was a problem, how could they work for the heavenly spring divine realm? Yi Tianyun Elder frowned. He had to admit that the situation made him unhappy. After all, he was repeatedly humiliated. Then, he was intercepted by Elder Shahong. This made him unhappy. Although he already knew about it, he still felt annoyed. Lord Tianyun, I will tell you this. I like to protect my people. No matter what my people do, I will protect them. You are a newcomer, but you didn't follow the rules. You even hit my people. That's why I'm so protective. In other words, even if I did that, I would still protect my people. Elder Shahong said in a low voice, I admire your ability. I think you have a bright future. More importantly, you can intimidate those kids so they won't be so arrogant. Yi Tianyun raised his eyebrows. Elder Shahong did not expect him to explain and apologize. As a leader, this was a taboo. After all, it would damage his identity. He would not say it. Even if he did something wrong, he would think that he was right. Elder Shahong's words made him smile. This kind of character was simple and violent. However, his protective character was a little disgusting, but only to outsiders. Elder Go Huang winked at Yi Tianyun, signaling him to hurry up and give Elder Shahong a way out, an elder bowing down to apologize. This is an incredible thing to do. Especially an elder from the heavenly spring god realm. How could it be easy for him to do that? If it were any other god domain elder, they would have made the best of the mistake and killed him with a slap. A genius was a genius. If he died, he died. It was more important to protect his dignity. Elder Shahong, I understand what you are thinking. I am more dissatisfied with the management. If I listen to the arrangement and cultivate in a palace that doesn't suit me, wouldn't I be a nobody? Yi Tianyun said angrily. Naturally, Kun Hao Heavenly Lord was the one who made Yi Tianyun unhappy. Elder Shahong did not have a problem with it. How could he not protect his people? More importantly, the management did not do a good job in this aspect. Many cultivators from Fan Yu were not treated fairly. That was the most disgusting thing. We have made this rule before, but this kind of thing still happened. We can only say that there is a lack of management. Elder Go Huang frowned. It was not because of Yi Tianyun that he said that. It was because they had done a good job in this aspect. As time passed, they found that more and more geniuses from Fan Yu were not inferior to their geniuses at all. They wanted people to work hard for them, but they did not even treat them fairly. How could they make them loyal to them? Who knew that there were still people who used their positions as deacons to make decisions casually? They were furious. Thank you, Elder Go Huang. I just want the cultivators from Fan Yu to be treated fairly, Yi Tianyun said, cupping his fists. Since the other party had said so, Yi Tianyun did not need to worry about it any longer. It was a very satisfactory result. He did not feel disgusted. Chapter 1078. The rapid reversal left the God Domain cultivators dumbfounded. They felt that if they were to suggest it, they would definitely be beaten half to death. At this moment, they were all trying to guess where Yi Tianyun came from to be able to change the minds of the elders. It was truly unbelievable. They had never seen such a scene before, including the guards. They all wondered if their eyes were playing tricks on them. Were they still their elders? That's for sure. We will strengthen the management in this area in the future. Elder Go Huang nodded his head solemnly. It wasn't to reproduce Yi Tianyun's words, but that they really wanted to do so. It could even be said that they had always done so, but there were still loopholes. With so many people and so many passageways, it was temporarily impossible to completely abide by the rules. Hence, they could only implement strict management, or else it would be impossible. Let's not talk about this. Which deity palace will you choose, Earthly Lord Tianyun? Elder Shahong immediately changed the topic. Why don't you join our sword palace? The sword palace is very powerful. You should be a sword user, right? Normally, you would use a sword. Hihi, Elder Shahong, you guessed wrong. Earthly Lord Tianyun uses a spear, so he wants to join the spear palace. Elder Go Huang laughed at the side. Spear palace? Elder Shahong revealed a disappointed expression. He was from the sword palace, so he naturally hoped that Yi Tianyun would join the sword palace. Cough cough, elders, I'm sorry. I don't intend to join the spear palace, but the deity's palace. Yi Tianyun expressed his intentions. What, the deity's palace? They were dumbfounded. They never expected Yi Tianyun to choose the deity's palace. It wasn't that the deity's palace wasn't good, but it was rather difficult to join. If one didn't possess a type of demon fire, they wouldn't be allowed to join. Yes, this junior intends to join the deity's palace. Is there a problem? Yi Tianyun inquired. There isn't a problem. I didn't expect both of us to be wrong. Elder Go Huang looked at him and laughed. Come to think of it, I do remember that you possess a demon fire. With such a demonic fire, it shouldn't be a problem for him to join the God Creation Palace. So that's the case. No wonder you want to join the God's Forging Palace. Elder Shahong was filled with disappointment. That's right, what kind of people are allowed to enter that special divine palace? Or, is it really that bad? Yi Tianyun was a little curious about that special divine palace. This. Elder Go Huang's expression was a little awkward, but he still nodded and said, it's indeed quite bad. The resources in all aspects are quite poor, mainly because it's too unorthodox. We can't take care of too many unorthodox cultivators. The heavenly spring divine realm was strong, but it didn't mean that it had all kinds of resources. Some unorthodox cultivators did not have the corresponding martial arts or resources, so they could only pile up together. In such a chaotic place, the environment was naturally not too good. It seems that if we go in, we will never be able to make a comeback. Yi Tianyun said indifferently. That's not true. If you perform well, we will also nurture you vigorously and think of ways to get you the corresponding martial arts, Elder Go Huang said. Although that was the case, it was rather difficult to enter in the early stages, and it was rather difficult to make a comeback. Yi Tianyun did not say much in this aspect and immediately headed for the teleportation array of the God's Forging Palace. The other Fan Yu cultivators also chose the divine palace that they wanted. Before they left, they all thanked Yi Tianyun. If it wasn't for his resistance, they would really have to join the special divine palace. Earth Lord Tianyun, once you have stabilized, come and find me. I will bring you to the heaven-stealing divine ground to fulfill the promise we made previously, Elder Go Huang instructed. No problem. Yi Tianyun nodded. Of course, he knew about the heaven-stealing divine ground. He heard that it was a good cultivation holy land. He wanted to go and see what was going on. Perhaps it would be of great help to him. After he stepped into the teleportation array, he quickly disappeared. The two elders looked at each other. My face is really going to be lost. I have to apologize to a junior. Elder Shahong shook his head and felt very helpless. It's nothing. You saw the recording disc. This kid is very strong, and he doesn't look like a reincarnated soul. I think his master is definitely very terrifying. He might be an extremely strong divine monarch, or maybe even an Empyrean. Elder Go Huang said. A heavenly master will let his disciple come here? Elder Shahong shook his head. This is training. Who can say for sure? Elder Go Huang shook his head and said, even if he isn't the disciple of a heavenly master, he will definitely have a lot of opportunities. In short, it is a good idea to let him train those kids. This way, we will have a greater chance of taking over the new celestial territory. The two of them looked at each other and saw their burning gazes. It was as if they had the same goal. Yi Tianyun didn't know that he was a **T stirrer. The experts in the celestial territory were definitely extremely arrogant. Especially the experts who looked down on Fan Yu. Even if the rules forbade discrimination, they would still discriminate against them. This was no longer something that could be simply said. The thoughts in one's heart couldn't be changed. With Yi Tianyun's appearance, the heavenly spring celestial territory would definitely become lively. Hence, Elder Shahong and the rest chose to make him stay. After all, there were very few cultivators in the mortal realm who had such powerful strength. If it was a strong cultivator from the celestial territory, although he could also suppress those arrogant experts, he wouldn't be able to beat them up as easily as a cultivator from Fan Yu. In the blink of an eye, Yi Tianyun was teleported to the God Creation Palace. As soon as he arrived, a scorching sensation immediately assaulted him from all directions, making him feel a little hot. The place he was in now was a temple. When he walked out, the outside was like a furnace. He could even feel the terrifyingly high temperature coming from below him. There were many plants around him, but they were all fiery red. They were all fire-type plants that could withstand such high temperatures. Ordinary trees would probably wither in a short while. Other than that, there were all kinds of fiery rocks everywhere. They all contained shocking fire energy. When the appraisal eye scanned over, not to mention the surface, even the planet beneath his feet was mostly made of fiery rocks. It was no wonder that the God Creation Palace was built here. With such a high temperature, he would definitely be able to forge decent weapons. Yi Tianyun chose this place to strengthen his forging ability. He wanted to forge a weapon that was extremely suitable for himself. Although he could obtain decent weapons every time he killed an enemy, the weapons he forged were the strongest and most suitable for him. Chapter 1079. When Yi Tianyun walked out of the teleportation temple, there weren't any guards blocking him outside. In fact, he had already been inspected, so he didn't need to go through it again. Looking up, there was a row of temples of different heights in front of him. They seemed to wrap up the entire planet, and they stretched on endlessly without an end in sight. Although there was no end, there was a gate right in front of him. There were guards patrolling the city walls, vigilantly watching the surroundings. Yi Tianyun could see cultivators flying over from time to time. When they approached the gate, they would choose to land and enter through the gate. Regardless of whether it was the God domain or the forces in Fan Yu, flying was prohibited for most of them. In these important regions, flying was absolutely prohibited to prevent accidents from happening. For example, if someone made a huge mistake and tried to escape, they would definitely fly. Once they saw someone trying to escape by flying, they would immediately be stopped. If they flew casually, they wouldn't be able to easily control the situation. Of course, the most important thing was respect. Apart from elders and deacons, no one else was allowed to fly. This was the rule. This rule applied to most of the important regions. Even in Yi Tianyun's imperial capital, flying was prohibited, so one could only move around by walking. This was for the convenience of management. The other cities didn't need to prohibit flying, so there wouldn't be any disturbances. When he approached, the guards immediately stopped him and questioned, "Identity token." Yi Tianyun took out the identity token and handed it over. After checking it, they nodded and immediately let him in. The degree of strictness wasn't considered high. After all, the identity of those who could enter this place had been verified, so there wasn't a need to be especially strict. Although it wasn't strict, they still needed to be verified. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enter. After entering, it was like a city. People came and went, and it didn't look like a divine palace specially set up for disciples. In fact, it was a huge city. "Isn't this a city?" Yi Tianyun was stunned. It was different from what he had seen before. As he carefully observed his surroundings, he understood the meaning behind his actions. There were shops all around, selling all kinds of forging materials. The quality was different, and the prices were also different. The currency was mainly star stones or could be replaced with other things. With a single glance, one could tell that they were blacksmiths. As for whether they were divine craftsmen or not, that was another matter. Divine craftsmen were existences that could truly forge divine weapons and above. Blacksmiths could only forge weapons that were divine artifacts. However, this was not the case here. There were people with high and low cultivation levels. Although there were countless experts in Grade 2 god domains, it did not mean that there were no weak points. There were many cultivators who were born and raised in Grade 2 god domains. Their cultivation was not high, and some of them were just as lacking in talent. However, because of this, they discriminated against fan-use cultivators. Even if they were inferior to fan-use practitioners from head to toe, they still viewed themselves as superior. This was like a crown prince who did not know how to wash clothes or cook, and could not even handle the affairs of the court well, but could still be incomparably arrogant and look down on everyone. Fortunately, there shouldn't be many people like this. Only those geniuses would have such a feeling. Along the way, Yi Qianyun saw many new materials. This place was really lively. However, the most lively place was the God Palace at the very front. A group of people formed a long queue as though they wanted to enter something. Yi Qianyun walked over and saw everyone registering. After handing over a token and paying a certain amount of starstones, they could enter for the assessment. You want to join the God Creation Palace, right? Hurry up and line up at the back. When the cultivators in the queue saw him, they immediately waved their hands at the back. They looked very familiar, and it was obvious that they had done this many times. Many people wanted to see what was going on and wanted to line up to enter. Some even wanted to cut the queue. However, these people had to go back and line up obediently. All of you want to join the God Creation Palace? Yi Qianyun was dumbfounded. Wasn't it said that the recruitment of disciples was very strict? There were so many people in the queue, and they all had demonic flames. Isn't that obvious? If we don't join the God Creation Palace, are we just here to enjoy the scenery? That's right. If you want to join the God Creation Palace, go to the back and line up. One look and you can tell that you are new and don't know the rules. Isn't it normal to not know the rules? There are always newcomers who want to join the God Creation Palace. But is it so easy to join the God Creation Palace? There are simply too many people. I wonder how many people will be eliminated this time. This is too cruel. Yi Qianyun took a glance at them. Their cultivation was around the Starry Lord level, which was not very high. As for those who did not have demonic flames in their bodies, fire-attributed constitutions were fine. Some had special fire-attributed constitutions, such as the Fire Dragon constitution. All of these were enough to satisfy the standards of blacksmiths. It was obvious that these people were not at the level of inner hall disciples. They were most likely related to the odd-job types. But even the odd-job types required a very high standard of odd-job skills. Yi Qianyun looked up. If he were to line up one by one, wouldn't he be a fool? It seemed like he would not even get a chance if he did not line up for a few days and nights. Most importantly, he was not here to join the odd-job group, but to join the God Creation Palace. Brother, come to my side. I have a spot here. At this moment, someone waved at Yi Qianyun. Yi Qianyun turned his head and realized that he did not know the person who waved at him at all. However, there was something special about him. He was a human. It seemed like they were of the same race and would take special care of him. What are you doing? Letting someone cut the queue? Someone immediately complained angrily. So what if I let someone cut the queue? Didn't you let someone cut the queue previously? Didn't someone cut the queue in front of me as well? What's wrong with me cutting a spot for my friend? The human brother retorted. We can cut the queue, but you can't let anyone cut the queue. If you want him to come in, you can, but you better get lost. That's right. Humans with such mediocre abilities want to join the God Creation Palace. They must be daydreaming. That's right. This is a waste of a spot. Letting you line up here is already benevolent. Originally, he thought that the rejection would be lesser. Who knew that since they were both born in the God domain, it would be the issue of race again? This made him want to vomit blood. Yi Tianyun was already used to it. There's no need for that. I won't cut the queue. You can just line up. Yi Tianyun smiled and nodded. This kid looked like a decent person. Brother, there's no need to be so polite. Hurry up and come over. Don't be afraid of them. They cut the queue even more, so I'll let you come alone. The youth waved his hand and gestured. There's really no need for that. Yi Tianyun waved his hand. It wasn't that he didn't appreciate the gesture, but he didn't want to join the odd job group. He wanted to see how he could enter and register. It wasn't a good idea to just line up like a fool. Chapter 1080. Since Yi Tianyun refused to queue up, the person could only give up. The cultivators at the side started to mock him. He thinks that your queue is too long and wants to see if there's a place in front where he can cut the queue. You little brat, just go and queue up at the back. You're an eyesore standing here. There are no humans in front. Don't even think about cutting the queue. It's easy to cut the queue. Come here. I'll let you cut the queue for just 100 star stones. 100 star stones? Isn't that too much? It only costs 10 star stones to register. Is it the same? If you want to register faster, you have to pay the price. They started to mock him. Those at the front even offered a high price for Yi Tianyun to cut the queue. They felt that Yi Tianyun wanted to queue faster, and that was why he didn't choose to queue with his clansmen. This action undoubtedly hurt the clansman who had to take care of Yi Tianyun. He was also a little embarrassed. He was doing this out of kindness, but Yi Tianyun didn't appreciate it. Brother, thank you very much. However, I'm not here to register, so it's meaningless to me. Yi Tianyun thanked the youth. When he looked carefully, he realized that there was a reception in front of him. There was no one there, and a person was sitting there, looking very bored, as if waiting for something. His eyes lit up, and he walked forward. The cultivators at the side saw him and were puzzled. That brat, he can't be thinking of registering over there, right? Seems like it. Isn't that place recruiting inner hall disciples? The requirements are very strict. Did that brat meet the requirements? Meet the requirements, my ass. How long has it been since anyone has met the requirements? He's probably new and doesn't know the rules here. That's right. He must be new and doesn't know the rules. He's going to make a fool of himself. They all laughed. This kind of situation wasn't rare. Newcomers came over and saw that there was no one else in the queue, so they came over to queue up. Who knew that the requirements were very strict? Not to mention meeting the requirements, he couldn't even meet the most basic requirements. Yi Tianyun came in front of the deacon and said, I'm here to join the God Creation Palace. As he spoke, he handed over his identity token. The other party casually took it and examined it. Champion of the Ascension Battle of the Gods, possessor of the demonic fire, failed. What? The champion of the domain of the gods' domain of the ascending heavens also has a demonic flame? He suddenly bounced up, and his voice was so loud that it startled everyone in the queue. That's right. Is there a problem? Yi Tianyun said calmly, do I pass? Qualified, absolutely qualified. Please come with me. This deacon was extremely excited. He could finally recruit someone. No one had come for a long time. He really wanted to die. Can you bring a friend with you? Of course, he won't be taking the inner hall test with me. He will be taking the ordinary test. As he spoke, he pointed at the young man who had helped him earlier. At this moment, all the cultivators in the queue were stunned, including the young man who was pointed at. The deacon glanced at him and nodded. Come over, I'll bring you in. It's on the way anyway. This sudden situation made the cultivator's eyes light up, and he quickly ran towards Yi Tianyun. His original dissatisfaction with Yi Tianyun immediately disappeared. Immediately, the deacon brought the two of them in. The guards in front didn't even stop them. With the deacon leading the way, they naturally wouldn't stop them. What's going on? That kid has the demonic fire. That's right. I heard that he's the champion of the Ascension Battle of the Gods. What the hell? There hasn't been a single person signing up in 100 years. Why is he here this time? Damn it, we don't even have to queue. The key is that the deacon is recommending us. The passing rate will definitely be higher. All of them were regretting. If they had treated Yi Tianyun better, it would definitely be their turn. Now, all they had to think about was whether Yi Tianyun would take revenge on them. When the time came and they became disciples, they would have the power to kill. As odd job workers, they could be easily kicked out of this place. At that time, they would really want to cry, but no tears would come out. The originally mocking expressions had now turned bitter. It was worse than eating a fly. At the same time, Yi Tianyun followed the deacon forward. Behind him was the slightly uneasy young man. He was really nervous and didn't know what to say. Relax, there's no need to be so nervous. This way, there's no need to queue. Yi Tianyun stretched out his hand and patted the young man's shoulder, indicating that he shouldn't be so nervous. The young man wiped his sweat and nodded. Brother, thank you for bringing me in. I didn't expect you to have the qualifications to sign up here. I was wrong. I thought you really felt that the queue was too long and you didn't want to join my side. It's okay. Work hard and you will definitely have a foothold here in the future. After saying that, he took out a low-grade reincarnation level weapon and stuffed it into the young man's hand. This is a gift for you. Thank you for your kindness just now. This is a low-grade reincarnation level weapon. It's too precious. I can't accept it. The young man's hands were trembling. To him, this was an extremely precious treasure. Accept it. Work hard. Yi Tianyun patted the young man's shoulder. The deacon at the side glanced at him and said, "We're here. You can directly go in and sign up. As for whether you will be hired, that will depend on your own ability." The young man nodded heavily and bowed deeply to Yi Tianyun. "Thank you, brother. In the future, when I am successful, I will definitely repay you." After saying that, he took the weapon and ran to sign up. With a good foundation, he could walk more steadily. Thus, he chose to accept the weapon and didn't refuse anymore. Subsequently, Yi Tianyun followed the deacon and continued walking forward. As he walked, he asked, "May I ask why there are so few people signing up here? The conditions of the god's palace are so harsh. Even those with demon fire might not be hired. Thus, there are very few people signing up. There are already fewer people with demon fire to begin with, so it is even more difficult to sign up." The deacon was very helpless. Be it my place or the other passageways, there are fewer people. Those with demon fire aren't everywhere on the streets, so it's not easy to find them. If he couldn't find anyone, he wouldn't be able to obtain any benefits. How could he not be anxious? Yi Tianyun nodded. Demon fire was already very rare and basically 1 in a million. Furthermore, there was the Elixir Refinement Palace to recruit people. Those with demon fire could go to the Elixir Refinement Palace, which caused the number of people to decrease. In terms of practicality, the Elixir Refinement Palace had more people. After all, weapons were ultimately external objects. If one could refine a good elixir, consuming it could increase one's cultivation, which was obviously more important. Fortunately, you came. Otherwise, I would have to be punished. The deacon said agitatedly, "Please be selected as a disciple. Only then will I get some benefits." Chapter 1081. Under the guidance of the warden, they walked forward. The warden seemed to have not spoken for hundreds of years as he kept chatting with him. What the deacon said was basically complaining about the things here, complaining about one thing after another. He complained about all the problems in the God Creation Palace, which made Yi Tianyun feel like his head was about to explode. However, he obtained a lot of useful information, which was that the requirements were extremely harsh. The demon fire was only the most basic requirement, and other abilities were also needed. Therefore, it was already pretty good if 1 out of 10 people who came to participate in the disciple selection was accepted. It was obvious how harsh the requirements were. It was already very difficult to have the demon fire, and they still had to choose disciples from those who possessed the demon fire. It was extremely harsh. If it were any other faction, they would be fine with the demon fire. They could take their time and not be so harsh. However, the God Creation Palace was different. It had to be extremely strict. Just having the demon fire wasn't enough, they also needed a stable foundation. For example, if one's comprehension in forging was too poor, they wouldn't be accepted as a disciple. If one wasn't meticulous enough, they wouldn't be accepted as a disciple either. The requirements for selecting disciples were getting harsher and harsher. The key was that the disciples here were discriminated against. No matter who it was, once they joined, they would take turns to make things difficult. Even if they passed, they would be chased away. Therefore, the God Creation Palace had fewer and fewer people. On the other hand, the Elixir Refinement Palace kept accepting disciples to strengthen itself. This was the result of the management's arrogance and indulgence, which led to such a situation. Why do I feel like I've entered the Black Palace? Yi Tianyun looked at the warden who was leading the way and asked, "Can I join somewhere else?" "How can you? You're already here. If you really can't join, you can join other palaces." How could the warden let Yi Tianyun escape? As long as he brought someone in, he would benefit. Whether he succeeded or not, he would still benefit. If he succeeded, the benefits he would obtain would be doubled. Yi Tianyun was dragged by the warden towards the God Refinement Palace in front. This God Refinement Palace was no different from the other palaces. They were all made of firestone. Before they even got close, they could feel the heat waves. If their cultivation was too low, they would really be roasted. "It's here, let's go in." The deacon dragged Yi Tianyun inside. After walking in, what came into view was not a huge formation. Instead, it was completely empty. There was only an old man sitting at the side, looking drowsy. It looked very desolate, like a declining family that no one wanted to join. As soon as he entered, the drowsy old man suddenly opened his eyes. A beam of golden light shot out from his eyes and fiercely hit Yi Tianyun's body, as if it wanted to see through him. "Elder Dongyun, this is a disciple who has come to take the entrance test." The deacon walked over eagerly and rubbed his palms together. He has the demonic fire, and is also the champion of the ascending battle of the deity realm. He's more than qualified to enter the assessment. Divine Domain Ascension Battles first place. Elder Dongyun widened his eyes and squinted a little. He looked him up and down and said, "A genius from Fan Yu? You even have the demon fire. This is rare. But very good, there's finally something to play with." Elder Dongyun." He rubbed his palms and looked at Elder Dongyun like a child begging for candy. Go, 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 I know what you're thinking. Go and collect your reward." Elder Dongyun waved his hand impatiently. "Many thanks, Elder Dongyun." The deacon's face is full of joy, and he hurriedly turned around and left. When he passed by Yi Tianyun, his eyes showed a bit of pity. "Boy, keep it up, you can do it." After encouraging Yi Tianyun, he quickly left to get the reward. Yi Tianyun frowned. He felt as if he had been sold. Elder Dongyun clapped his hands. Clap, clap, clap sounds echoed in the refining god temple. Nothing happened after that. It was no different from before. Elder Dongyun walked over with a smile. Seeing his smile, Yi Tianyun felt his blood run cold. He felt as if he was a prey being targeted. There hasn't been a new disciple for about 2 to 3 years. I wonder how your standard is. The previous one was very weak and couldn't even pass the most basic test. Elder Dongyun looked at him and grinned. If you pass our test, not only will you be able to join the God Creation Palace, but we will also nurture you with all our might. We can even give you the right to cultivate in the heaven-pilfering divine land. Basically, as long as we can get it, we will give it to you. The moment he opened his mouth, it was shockingly tempting. It was as though he was saying that as long as he had it, he would give it to him. Yi Tianyun was expressionless. To be able to provide so many benefits meant that it must be an extremely cruel test. From the looks of it, this Elder Dongyun preferred to play with tests. In just a moment, a group of people surged in from outside and quickly made the place lively. Finally, a newcomer. He looks rather young. I wonder what his abilities are like. Hihi, let's see if he can pass the test of us senior brothers. It won't be that easy to join. Yo, he's a human. A human that can control demonic fire. He's not simple. I wonder how his standard is and if he can withstand our abuse. Oh, no, our test. The ones that surged in weren't the other elders, but some senior brothers and sisters. There weren't many of them, only about a dozen of them. However, the weakest of them was at the 8th refinement Earth Monarch realm, while the strongest was at the 6th or 7th refinement Lord of Heaven realm. It could be said that there were many geniuses. They sized up Yi Tianyun with excited faces, as though they had found something fun. Seeing how excited they were, Yi Tianyun's heart sank. It seemed like these people were treating the test as a form of entertainment. However, he didn't see any disdain in their eyes, nor did they look down on him. They wouldn't look down on him just because he was from the human race. They were all excited. Little junior brother, we'll call you little junior brother for the time being. If you join us, we'll give you a gift for our first meeting. If anyone bullies you in the future, just tell us and we'll avenge you. Heh, senior brother High Dragon, is it really okay for you to say that? What's not good about it? The one from before was scared away by us. If we don't give them something, they won't have the motivation to take the test. All of them started discussing, and their eyes were constantly sizing up Yi Tianyun. Among them, the one that made Yi Tianyun's hair stand on end was an absolute beauty at the side. Her beautiful eyes revealed a burning gaze, and she even licked her lips at him as though she had seen food. Little brother, if you perform well, senior sister will bring you to a fun place. She smiled slightly, and her beauty was enough to topple nations. Chapter 1082. Their enthusiasm made Yi Tianyun feel a little overwhelmed. This was his first time facing these tests, and they were so enthusiastic that he was not used to it. Of course, it was better than being discriminated against. That was even more displeasing. At the very least, they were not disgusting. At most, they were a little more enthusiastic. They did not look like a test, but more like they had found something fun to do. I am here to take the test. Senior brothers and sisters, are you all examiners? Yi Tianyun looked at the dozen people surrounding him. This was his first time seeing such a situation. That's right. Why else do you think we are here? They looked at each other and smiled, a hint of mischief in each other's eyes. Boom. At this time, the door behind him closed, and a loud sound echoed throughout the area. Yi Tianyun turned his head and saw that his two senior brothers had run to the back and closed the door. What's going on? Yi Tianyun asked curiously. Nothing much, we just don't want others to disturb you. This is a very important test, we cannot be disturbed. That senior brother High Dragon was the eldest. Among all the senior brothers and sisters, his cultivation was the highest, reaching the 7th level of the Lord of Heaven. The second strongest was the senior sister who tempted Yi Tianyun. She was called Senior Sister Fire Lotus, reaching the 6th level of the Lord of Heaven. They all broke through from the 8th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm, not the 9th. However, this was already very strong. After all, the 8th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm was Lord of Heaven. In the first grade God realm, this level was already at the elder level. Here, they could only be considered disciples. The difference in treatment was like heaven and earth. Yi Tianyun was speechless. How was this not wanting others to disturb him? They were afraid that he would run away. What is the test content? Yi Tianyun looked at them, as if they have thought about the assessment content hundreds of times, and now they put all of their efforts on him. As for the content, we have already thought about it. We will test you for 10 rounds. One of them jumped out and said, 10 rounds. Yi Tianyun almost vomited blood. 10 rounds at the start? Wasn't this torture? Ahem, don't go overboard. Elder Dong Yun walked out and glared at the disciple. He then turned to Yi Tianyun and said with a smile, there are only 3 tests. High Dragon, Fiery Lotus, and I will set the test. Once you pass, you will become a disciple of the God Creation Palace. You must not leave during the process. You can't leave the stage in the middle. If I can't pass, why should I continue? Yi Tianyun was puzzled. Of course. If you can't pass, then skip to the next round. Even if you fail, you will still have the chance to become a disciple, said Elder Eastcloud with a smile. There's such a logic. Yi Tianyun was shocked. The rules were really messy. He didn't even need to pass the test to become a disciple. This meant that they would be recruited based on the overall standard, not just one aspect, but all aspects. If there was something special, they would be recruited. If there was nothing special, they would not be recruited at all. As for passing completely, that meant that he had been chosen. Of course. In short, you can't back out in the middle. You must finish our assessment, understand? Their eyes glowed, and they seemed to be unwilling to let him leave. Yi Tianyun felt like a sheep entering a tiger's den. He wondered if he had really come to the wrong place and if he had to use shift to escape. This assessment won't be life-threatening, right? Asked Yi Tianyun. They looked at each other and actually hesitated. This hesitation meant that their lives were really in danger. Seeing Yi Tianyun's gaze, they smiled embarrassedly. There will be some life-threatening danger. Our assessment will definitely not be that simple. But don't worry, it won't be very dangerous, Senior Brother Hydreigon said with a smile. Yi Tianyun suddenly felt speechless. He could only say, all right then. Can we start the assessment now? Yes. They nodded repeatedly. After looking at each other, Elder Eastcloud walked out and said with a smile, then, I'll be the first to conduct the assessment. After he walked out, he looked at Yi Tianyun and said, the first round won't be very difficult for you. The first thing to master in artifact refinement is to control fire. If you can't control fire well, everything will be nonsense. Therefore, the first test I'm giving you now is to burn this piece of ice into a thin needle for me. With that said, he raised his hand and threw the piece of ice in front of Yi Tianyun, indicating for him to burn it into a thin needle. Yi Tianyun was instantly stunned. This was simply a freakish test. To burn a piece of ice into a thin needle, the amount of strength needed was not just difficult, it was simply freakishly difficult. The control of strength needed to be very precise. Especially since this piece of ice was very ordinary, it was formed from very ordinary solidified water. This meant that as long as the fire was slightly increased, it would directly burn to death. It might be possible if it was a small burn, but to melt it into a thin needle, the difficulty was rather freakishly difficult. The thin needle was already small enough. Just touching it a little would immediately cause it to completely vaporize. If you can still make a small hole on it and allow the needle and thread to pass through, I'll reward you with a high-grade reincarnation level treasure. Senior Brother Hydreigon even added a condition at the side, his face full of excitement. Not only him, but everyone else also looked at Yi Tianyun, wanting to see what he would do. Yi Tianyun was instantly speechless. Wasn't this deliberately making things difficult for him? If he used energy to carve it, it would not take more than a second to cut it into a thin needle. But if he changed it to flames, the difficulty would be too great. Isn't this a little too difficult? Yi Tianyun frowned and said, with your ability to control fire, can all of you reach this step? He had experience in this area, so of course he knew how difficult it was. If everyone could reach this step, they could be said to be a super master of controlling fire. There are also very few of us who can reach this step, but it's not that there aren't any. Only a strict standard can prove your ability, Senior Brother Hydreigon said very frankly, causing Yi Tianyun to roll his eyes. This was simply making things difficult for him. That's right, this is our excellent standard. Let's see how much you can complete. Elder Eastcloud's words made Yi Tianyun understand something, which was that he did not really need to complete everything. After all, the difficulty was indeed very high. If he could make it very thin, even if it was not a thin needle, it would already be considered very good. Yi Tianyun looked at them and said helplessly, all right then, I'll give it a try. Don't worry, we will give you 3 chances. After the 3 chances, choose the best one as your result this time, Elder Eastcloud said. Yi Tianyun looked at the piece of ice in front of him, and the corner of his mouth curled into a trace of a smile. To him, this was really too easy. He was just pretending. He believed that his ability to control fire was definitely not weak. Chapter 1083. The senior brothers looked at each other and smiled. They felt that it was interesting to test the newcomer. They seemed to like this kind of thing and wanted to see how Yi Tianyun solved it. It should be said that they were like judges to see if the newcomer could become their future junior brother. At least the way he looked at Yi Tianyun didn't have the slightest contempt, nor did he look down on him. Just this point alone made Yi Tianyun feel quite comfortable and did not reject him. They seemed to be quite united and had a good relationship with each other, unlike the other forces which were basically incompatible. Only those with equal status or similar talents could have a topic to talk about. As for those with a bigger gap, they could not be bothered. This kind of atmosphere was quite bad and was not the environment that Yi Tianyun liked. It was different here. The atmosphere felt quite good. Hehe, I remember that kid from last time. He burned it to nothing. His fire control is a little too weak, right? It's normal to burn it to nothing. Some people will just have flames, but their fire control is a mess. I remember there was someone with good fire control, but the result was like a stick. It's a little different from a thin needle. I can't even burn it into a thin needle, let alone drill a hole in it. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't. Senior sister Flaming Lotus can do it. Not to mention a thin needle, she can even burn a hair out. They were discussing while Yi Tianyun was preparing for the test. Yi Tianyun did not think much. He raised his hand and displayed the white bonfire. The moment this demonic fire appeared, everyone's eyes lit up. The white bonfire was a very good demonic fire, and they nodded. Then, Yi Tianyun quickly threw the flame on the ice. With a whoosh, the violent flame wrapped around the ice. Almost instantly, the ice was completely covered. Everyone was stunned. So simple and violent, didn't he burn the ice directly? After a while, the flame quickly disappeared, leaving behind a thin needle. It was similar to a normal needle. In just the blink of an eye, the ice block was burned into needles. His ability to control fire could be said to be terrifying. When everyone saw this, they were immediately dumbfounded. It turned out that they had encountered an expert in playing with fire. To be able to easily burn out fine needles, it was obvious that he was very experienced. Damn it, I'm not seeing things, right? This flame control is even better than Senior Sister Fiery Lotus. Bullshit. Senior Sister Hua Lian can make fine threads that are even thinner than a needle. Alright, you're much stronger than me anyway. They were all shocked by Yi Tianyun's move. He had thought that Yi Tianyun would fail, but who would have thought that he would succeed in an instant? I almost forgot to punch a hole in it. Yi Tianyun smiled and flicked his finger. A small flame flew out and easily pierced through the head of the needle, completely forming a needle. Then, he extended his hand and pushed the thin needle back into Elder Dongyun's hand. After Elder Eastcloud received it, he picked it up and looked at it. He nodded in satisfaction. Looks like this level isn't too difficult for you. It can be said that your ability to control fire is very shocking. Looks like you've practiced a lot of techniques for controlling fire. They were all very satisfied with this and exclaimed in admiration at Yi Tianyun's performance. Are all the newcomers so strong now? One of them reached out and slapped his face. It was obvious that he was not as good as Yi Tianyun, which was why he did that. That's right. It seems that we're old. After training for so long, we're not as good as a newcomer. How embarrassing. They all shook their heads, feeling like they had been dealt a heavy blow. Their ability to control fire was not even half as good as Yi Tianyun's, but they could still join. From this, it could be seen that it was necessary to test one's ability to control fire, but it did not need to be at such a terrifying level. Fire control could be developed slowly in the future, so it was not the most important test here. Yi Tianyun immediately noticed this. Since it was the first round, it probably would not be very strict. You're really good, kid. I was just saying it casually, and you really completed it. Senior brother Yulong took the needle and sized it up. He clicked his tongue and said, then, according to our agreement, I'll give you a high-grade reincarnation level treasure later. You can choose any one of them. This senior brother Yulong was very forthright. He did not go back on his word. However, this was not a big problem for him. With his ability, he could already forge high-grade reincarnation level treasures. There was some difficulty, but he could still forge them. Little brother, your ability to control fire is comparable to mine. Senior Sister Fire Lotus squinted her eyes and smiled sweetly. When we join the God Creation Palace, can you spar with me for a while? Let's talk about it after I join. Yi Tianyun wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. These people were really enthusiastic. Ahem, you passed the first round perfectly. It was indeed beyond my expectations. Your foundation is very good. It was a little beyond our expectations. Your ability is not bad. Elder Dong Yun revealed a smile. There are so many disciples here for the assessment. You're considered to be at the forefront. Then, I'll leave the second round to Yulong to set the question. Senior brother Yulong seemed to have waited for a long time. He ran out excitedly and said, I'll set the second round. The content is still fire control. Fire control again? Yi Tianyun was stunned. He had already tried to control fire before, and now he was testing this again. Of course, it's not just simple fire control. Later on, you can forge any weapon or anything else. We'll keep disturbing you. If you can successfully complete this weapon, we'll consider it a pass. How about that? Senior brother Yulong laughed loudly. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They could see the mischief in each other's eyes. Yi Tianyun immediately knew what these guys were here for. They were here to help disturb him, right? They were really going to do it in a group and disturb him from the side. However, it was unprecedented for them to participate in the assessment as a group. It could be said that they were united as one to help the junior brothers who joined later. That's not a problem. Let's give it a try. Yi Tianyun nodded. He wanted to see how far these people could go. It's good that there's no problem. We'll still give you 3 chances. We'll keep disturbing you. I hope you can maintain your fire control ability and don't be disturbed by us. Senior brother Yulong laughed loudly. The others looked at each other and smiled, as if they were laughing about something. I remember something. When we disturbed that guy previously, he directly exploded his cauldron. Phut. I almost forgot if you didn't mention it. That was because the disturbance was too much, resulting in the explosion. Chapter 1084. Yi Tianyun didn't say much. He quickly took out a pile of materials and prepared to refine a low-grade reincarnation-grade weapon. He wouldn't choose something with a high difficulty. He just chose something with a normal difficulty. God knows how these guys would interfere with him. Then, he quickly threw out a pile of materials and used the white flame bonfire to melt the materials. He didn't need a furnace to start refining. He didn't need a furnace to refine a weapon. This wasn't difficult for him. This move made them sigh. They felt that Yi Tianyun was really bold. He actually didn't use a furnace. As expected of a first-rate fire control ability. He didn't even need a furnace. If it was me, I wouldn't dare to do this. That's right. Although it's only a low-grade reincarnation-grade weapon, it's still quite difficult without a furnace. They all recognized Yi Tianyun's ability. To dare to do this, he must have excellent fire control ability. They didn't dare to do this, but there were others who dared to do it. When Yi Tianyun was melting, a piece of iron was suddenly thrown into the flames. It quickly mixed with the other materials. Add it in for me, don't throw it out. Senior martial brother Yu Long laughed loudly and added a little seasoning for him. Yi Tianyun was startled. Then, he quickly controlled the white flame bonfire to melt the mixed materials. Then, he removed the impurities and quickly superimposed it with the already melted materials. With the addition of this material, the entire weapon's material changed. A change in the ratio could easily lead to failure. However, Yi Tianyun's control was quite perfect. He directly removed the impurities, leaving behind the purest thing. At the same time, he threw in a brand new material. This material and the material that senior apprentice brother Hydreigon threw in formed a perfect combination. They complemented each other and didn't affect anything. But compared to before, this weapon would have more effects. When the senior apprentice brothers and sisters saw this scene, they all praised him. To be so decisive, it proved that he was quite experienced. If Yi Tianyun didn't add in the new material, this weapon would still have problems. After all, it was impossible to eliminate the negative effects of this material just by relying on the ability to control fire. For example, if he were to throw in an ice stone, he would need to use another material that could withstand the ice stone to successfully refine the weapon. Yi Tianyun quickly found the right materials and controlled them perfectly. There was no doubt that he had a good foundation. Interesting. Then I'll add this. Then, someone threw a piece of ore into the melted liquid. Yi Tianyun was quick to react. He quickly wrapped it up, melted it, and threw out new materials to make the perfect mix. "I'll throw one too." All of them seemed to think that the matter wasn't too serious, and kept throwing out new materials. This was what they meant by interference. They didn't mean that they were going to beat up Yi Tianyun while he was forging. This was no longer a disturbance, but a deliberate attempt to chase people out. The content of their assessment was very rough, but at the same time, it was also a very important foundation. What was being tested now was his ability to adapt and his ability to control fire. Now, all of them were basically taking turns to throw out ores, special materials, and even spiritual medicine. All of them were dissolved by him one by one and integrated into the pile of materials. He didn't know what he would be able to forge in the end, but he only needed to pay attention to one thing, and that was that he couldn't fail or explode. Even if he forged a brick in the end, it would at least be a brick that could smash someone to death, and not a pile of powder. If the forging failed normally, it would directly explode and turn into a pile of waste materials that couldn't be used at all. In the end, all the spectators threw in a material. Yi Tianyun didn't reject any of them, and he couldn't reject any of them. He solved the integration problem perfectly every time, and so far, there hadn't been any major problems. The biggest problem was that he didn't know what kind of weapon he could forge from the big ball of liquid. It looked so mixed, and probably had all kinds of attributes. This kind of weapon was relatively weak. No one could have all the attributes. Being too comprehensive meant being mediocre. Of course, it wasn't a requirement for the weapon to be strong, but for the weapon to be usable, and that was enough. This newbie is really amazing. He's the strongest newbie I've seen so far. He threw out so many materials, and nothing happened to him. That's right. If it were me, I would have failed long ago. He's completely fine. It's watertight. Damn it. Why do I feel more inferior as the test goes on? They couldn't help but scratch their heads. They originally wanted to see how long Yi Tianyun could last. Who knew that he would persevere all the way, and nothing happened to him. Condense. Yi Tianyun shouted and quickly formed hand seals. The ball of liquid flew up quickly, and under his hands, it was constantly kneaded in the air. Then, he fell heavily from the ground. At the same time, he condensed his energy into a giant hammer and kept smashing it down. He kept smashing the ball of liquid. As there were too many materials, he kept making the materials wider. Then, the shape of an incomparably huge sword gradually appeared in everyone's sight. With so many materials, he could only forge a relatively large weapon, and a huge sword was a good choice. Under his constant hammering, a huge sword was quickly formed. It was flashing all kinds of colors, and looked very strange. This meant that he had fused too many materials. If it were anyone else, it would be a waste of materials. But to be able to fuse them and not explode, it already proved that Yi Tianyun's ability was very amazing. Dang! With a crisp sound, Yi Tianyun kept the void hammer, and a colorful huge sword appeared in front of everyone. Its grade was not low, and it was almost a mid-grade reincarnation level weapon. There were a lot of mixed materials, but the quality was not low. The materials they threw out were not very precious, but they were not bad either. Usually, they wouldn't carry any garbage with them, so the materials they threw out were not bad. Now that they could forge a weapon that was close to a mid-grade reincarnation level weapon, it was definitely shocking. It's done. Yi Tianyun threw the huge sword to senior brother Yulong. After senior brother Hydreigon received it, he reached out to touch it and said in amazement, "You're really amazing. You managed to forge it perfectly just like that. Just based on your reaction speed alone, your standard can be considered above average among us." Chapter 1085. They could not help but praise the giant sword that Yi Tianyun had forged. They were not stingy with their compliments. They were more and more satisfied with Yi Tianyun. Even Elder Dong Yun was looking at him with admiration. Without a doubt, he was qualified to join the God Creation Palace after passing these 2 rounds. "I wonder if I can pass this round, senior brother Yulong?" Yi Tianyun asked with a smile. "If you can't pass this round, then no one in the world can pass it. Be it your control or your ability to adapt, they are both superb." Senior brother Yulong smiled. "We are very satisfied with this. You passed the second round easily and perfectly. Although you performed perfectly in the first 2 rounds, there is still the third round. If you can't pass the third round, it will be more difficult for you to be evaluated. As he spoke, senior brother Yulong looked at senior sister Fire Lotus. Senior sister Fire Lotus was the one who came up with the final test. Yi Qianyun squinted his eyes. He thought that they would hire him without passing the third round. Who knew there was a third round? From their tone, it seemed like the third round was the most important one. Senior sister Fire Lotus walked out and looked at him with a blushing face. She smiled. Little junior brother, you're really capable. I'm more and more attracted to you. She even walked over and drew circles on his chest with her fingertip. It looked rather seductive. Yi Qianyun moved back a little and maintained a distance. He smiled. Senior sister, you're too tempting. I'm afraid I can't control myself. If you can't control yourself, then don't. Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled. It was really like a beautiful fire lotus blooming. It was red in 4 colors and looked rather beautiful. Cough, cough. Tell me the content of the third round, Yi Qianyun said. You really don't know how to flirt. Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled. The content of the third round is very simple. Bring this weapon and follow me to the fiery mystic realm to kill demonic beasts to obtain the flame scale. Once you obtain the flame scale, you will pass the round perfectly. Flame scale? Yi Qianyun still had some impression of this item. It was one of the materials used to create high-grade reincarnation level treasures and was relatively precious. It was unique to the flame Qilin. Generally speaking, there was no need to kill the fire Qilin. All one had to do was subdue it and take it away. If he killed it, he wouldn't be able to obtain it in the future. Therefore, they would choose to catch it and peel off a little flame scale from time to time. After resting for a period of time, it would grow back. This was quite cruel, but some places would give it good food and drink, and nurture it as their companion. This way, he didn't even need to subdue it to obtain the flame scales, which would normally fall off. That's right. We have a fiery arcane realm here. There are many materials inside. There's also a flame Qilin among them. We'll work together to subdue it and then pluck out its flaming scales, senior sister Huolian said. Sure, no problem. Yi Qianyun nodded and said. It wasn't difficult to subdue the flame Qilin. To him, he could suppress it with one punch and knock it out. Then, it would be easy to get the scales. Then, let's go to the fiery arcane realm now. Senior sister Huolian waved at Yi Qianyun and led him forward. Senior brothers, you're not going? Yi Qianyun looked at them and asked curiously. Why are we going to the fiery arcane realm? We'll wait here for you guys to come back. Senior brother Yulong smiled and said, we have high hopes for you. This time, you must get it back successfully. Yi Qianyun was a little puzzled. He thought that they would come over together to watch. Who knew that they would stay here obediently? This made him feel strange. However, after thinking about it carefully, they were going to get the flaming scales. If a group of people came over, they would scare the flame Qilin. After they left, everyone looked at each other and smiled. Then, they disappeared on the spot, going somewhere unknown. Under senior sister Huolian's lead, they came to the teleportation entrance of the fiery arcane realm. After explaining to the guard that it was a test, the guard immediately let them pass. They easily arrived at the fiery arcane realm through the teleportation formation. As soon as they arrived, Yi Qianyun felt that the temperature was even hotter than above. Looking around, there were still piles of flaming stones. It was no different from the ones outside. The only difference was that there were volcanoes at the side. There was also a lot of lava rolling on the side, forming rivers of lava. With their cultivation, it would not be a problem for them to fall for a short period of time. It would not cause them much harm. Yi Qianyun glanced to the side. Just as he was about to say something, a figure jumped into his arms. Little junior brother, are we not going to do anything? Senior sister Huolian jumped into his arms. Her beautiful eyes were full of temptation. She was not here to get the flaming scales. She was here to seduce him and do some private things. Luckily, there was no one around. Otherwise, they would have been misunderstood. Senior Sister Huolian, what are you doing? Yi Tianyun grabbed her shoulder and pushed her forward. He said in a deep voice, we are here to get the flaming scales. Please behave yourself. Senior Sister Huolian was tempting, but he was not interested. He had Shishueyun in his heart. That was enough. Senior Sister Huolian waved her hand and said in a bored tone, how boring. I think you are quite capable and much stronger than the others. Can't I have some fun? Senior Sister Huolian, you are putting me in a difficult position, Yi Tianyun said in a deep voice. I know. It's a mission. You are so boring. It's just a flaming scale. I have it here. Senior Sister Huolian took out a flaming scale and waved it in front of him. She smiled and said, how about it? I have the flaming scale now. You just need to play with me for a while and let me order you around. This flaming scale is yours. There is no need to look for the fire Chiline. It is so hard to find. You might as well take it back. Moreover, I am the supervisor now. No one will think that the flaming scale is on us. You can just say that you took it. Her face was full of temptation. She still had the mission item in her hand. He did not need to look for the fire Chiline. He only needed to accompany her. Not interested. I will get the flaming scale myself. Yi Tianyun did not even bother to look at her. He turned around and walked forward. Senior Sister Huolian's smile deepened as she watched him leave. She followed him and said, all right, you are so inflexible. But I like inflexible people like you. I will go with you to find the flaming scale. I will not trick you this time. Chapter 1086. With Yi Tianyun's warning, Senior Sister Fire Lotus finally became more obedient. She didn't make any more moves and just followed obediently by the side. Yi Tianyun carefully explored around. There are a lot of demon beasts here. There are also a lot of forging materials. It could be said to be a treasure trove of materials. It should be inside the God Creation Palace and not open to the public. Otherwise, this place would have been full of cultivators. Even though it was slightly dangerous, it was still within an acceptable range. Especially when one wanted good stuff and was unwilling to take risks, it was obviously very unreasonable. As they went deeper, the demon beasts became fewer and fewer. There weren't even any demon beasts around. At the same time, the quality of the materials around them was getting higher and higher, and their numbers were increasing. It wasn't that no one was collecting them, but that this was the territory of a powerful demon beast. We might be in the Flame Chiline's territory. Yi Tianyun turned his head and looked to the side. He could already smell danger. The Flame Chiline was definitely not weak. It was at least above the level of the Lord of Heaven, and it was very powerful. With the Chiline's bloodline, how could it be weak? The Chiline's bloodline was ranked in the top 10. The power that it could unleash was definitely above most of the same level. That's right. We are already in the Flame Chiline's territory. Senior Sister Fire Lotus's expression turned serious and wasn't as exaggerated as before. Just as she finished her sentence, an angry roar came from the flame forest in front of them. It was like a roar from the underground abyss, and it was frightening. It's warning us not to get close, Senior Sister Fire Lotus said in a low voice. If that's the case, let's hurry over. We'll pass if we take the scales. Yi Tianyun nodded, ignored the warning, and ran forward. Senior Sister Fire Lotus followed up with a long whip in her hand. It was very suitable for her character, and it was hot. Roar. Just then, a huge figure jumped out of the flame forest. The first thing that Yi Tianyun felt was the extreme heat, as though it could burn a person. What appeared in front of them was the huge Flame Chiline, shrouded in flames. His entire body was covered in a thick layer of flaming scales, each of which contained an astonishing amount of flame energy. Even those at the level of the Lord of Heaven would not dare to casually touch the flaming scales, for fear of being burned. Of course, Yi Tianyun wasn't worried about this. They didn't need to worry about the flaming scales burning them. Now, they only needed to worry about how to dig out the flaming scales from its body. Flame Chiline, super powerful divine beast, level 5 Lord of Heaven cultivation, possesses super demonic firepower, can burn everything. At the same time, the flaming scales on his body could withstand all damage. The super strong defense was enough to block a fatal attack. 5th stage Lord of Heaven, this flame Chelene was truly powerful. This was a divine beast. Seeing this divine beast, Yi Tianyun wanted to tame it for his own use. With such a powerful divine beast as a companion, how could he not feel at ease? Roar. The flame Chelene roared at them again and issued a stern warning, signaling them to stay away. Go. Senior Sister Fire Lotus rushed towards the flame Chelene without hesitation and whipped the long whip in her hand towards the flame Chelene's body. Pa. The whip heavily hit the flame Chelene's body. Such a heavy whip only left a shallow mark on the flame Chelene's body, and the flame Chelene quickly recovered as if nothing had happened. Roar. Senior Sister Fire Lotus's attack thoroughly enraged the flame Chelene. It roared at her and a huge fireball whizzed towards her. As if the end of the world had come, the huge fireball fell from the sky and enveloped the entire land. Senior Sister Fire Lotus's complexion changed, and she quickly dodged to the side, but her speed was still a bit too slow, and the fireball had already exploded towards her. At this moment, a figure blocked in front of her, and a cold light flickered. Shio. The huge fireball was split into 2 halves by a spear. Yi Tianyun grabbed Senior Sister Fire Lotus and fled to the side. Senior Sister Fire Lotus was stunned. She didn't expect that Yi Tianyun would come so quickly, and even penetrate this terrible fireball with a spear. You stay here, I will deal with it. Yi Tianyun motioned her to stay on the side. He alone was enough to deal with this flame Chelene. Wait. Senior Sister Fire Lotus hurriedly stopped him, but Yi Tianyun had already rushed forward alone, and was ready to penetrate this flame Chelene. Seeing Yi Tianyun rushing over, the flame Chelene was stunned, and turned to look at Senior Sister Fire Lotus with a confused look in its big eyes, as if it was asking for some instructions. Senior Sister Fire Lotus pointed at Yi Tianyun and nodded at the same time. Roar. The flame Chelene suddenly went crazy, and aimed at Yi Tianyun, and fiercely spat out several balls of flames. The power of each ball was stronger than the previous one, and directly blocked all of his escape routes. Break. Yi Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he displayed violent heaven dew, and a violent power was released along with the spear. It directly penetrated this huge fireball, and easily pierced it into 2 halves. The next moment, he rushed out of this exploding fireball, and in one fell swoop, he was in front of the flame Chelene, and swung his spear at its body. Under this fierce swing, a bang sound was heard, and the flame Chelene was smashed down from the sky like a fool. Boom! The flame Chelene heavily hit the ground, and a big pit was formed. Yi Tianyun didn't stop, and quickly chased after the flame Chelene, and was ready to launch another fierce attack on the flame Chelene. Wait a minute. At this time, Senior Sister Fire Lotus hurriedly blocked in front of the flame Chelene, and with a big hand in front of it, she said, "Little junior brother, don't attack it." What's wrong? Aren't we going to take the flame scale? A faint smile appeared on Yi Tianyun's face, as if he had already seen through some clues. This is our test, and you don't play according to the rules. How can you be so strong? Senior Sister Fire Lotus was very helpless. What do you mean by not playing according to the rules? Yi Tianyun pretended to be suddenly enlightened, and said, "Could it be that, in fact, the flame Chelene is actually your companion, and you just found it to test me?" "Yes, it is to test you. I have to say, the content of the last test seems to have failed." At this time, a group of people flew over, and these people were the senior brothers and senior sisters from before, and Elder Dongyun. They were hiding at the side, and now that they knew that they had been exposed, they could only show themselves. Chapter 1087. The fire Chelene crawled up from the ground, not injured at all. Actually, Yi Tianyun didn't use much strength at all. The spearhead wasn't directly aimed at its body, but smashed down with the spear shaft. Thus, there wasn't much damage to speak of, not even a scratch. At most, it would hurt a little when it smashed down. To the fire Chelene, this was just a scratch, not a big problem. This was all done on purpose by Yi Tianyun. He was just playing along with Senior Sister Fire Lotus's performance. From the moment Senior Sister Fire Lotus entered, he knew that everything was an act. She probably fell for it. Senior Sister Fire Lotus was extremely talented, and he knew her true personality. She definitely wouldn't be so wanton. Everything was a trap, and he just fell for it. Now, it was proven that his guess was right. It was all just a test. From the start, senior sister Fire Lotus had set a trap for him. She showed interest in him in all aspects, and even tempted him in other aspects. Some couldn't control themselves and were tempted as soon as they entered. Then, everything would be lost. He was very sure that if he fell for it, no matter how perfect his performance was, he wouldn't be chosen as a disciple. Little junior brother, aren't you too strong? You messed up our plan. It wasn't easy for us to think of a trap, but you ruined it. Senior brother Hydreigon was a little frustrated as he walked over with a helpless expression. It's fine. At least you resisted the temptation at the start. You didn't choose to hand in the Fire Lotus's scale. You even chose to protect her later. This is already in line with our selection criteria. There shouldn't be a need for the rest of the test. Elder East Cloud walked out and said with a smile, however, this was indeed unexpected. It was quite a strong attack, but it was still broken like that. It messed up the plan. Elder East Cloud, what was the original plan? Yi Tianyun smiled faintly. Fire Lotus was injured by the attack, and she brought you to escape. Hide in a cave, and reveal all sorts of precious treasures at the same time. Let's see if you would be tempted and run with them. Getting killed by the Fire Chaline's attack isn't your fault. Some people will take the treasures and run. They won't prioritize saving people, and instead destroy the corpses. Elder East Cloud shook his head, and a fierce look flashed across his eyes. Clearly, he had encountered such a situation before. Yi Tianyun felt helpless. Wasn't this a trap? It was equivalent to luring him to commit a crime. If it was anyone else who saw someone injured and on the verge of death, they would have easily taken the treasures and left. This was a test of human nature. Should he insist on saving them and leave? Even if he was on the verge of death, he had to save him first. Instead of secretly taking a few treasures, destroying the corpses, or even abandoning the people. Little junior brother, I know what you're thinking. In the eyes of the outside world, our God Creation Palace is a God Creation Palace that deliberately makes things difficult for newcomers. We just want a sincere companion who can trust others with his back, instead of scheming against each other and being jealous of each other. We are a family. We help and support each other. Senior brother Hydreigon's expression was solemn. The others also nodded. There was no discrimination or mockery. Instead, they huddled together. They could only help and support each other. This was how a true senior brother should be, instead of scheming against each other and stabbing each other in the dark. This was the attitude that Yi Tianyun admired the most. He wanted this kind of feeling. There was no discrimination, and being able to help each other was the best choice. It was not like some sects, where from the moment they joined, they had to scheme against each other. If one surpassed the other by just a little, the other would think of ways to belittle them or stab them in the dark. This kind of sect would not last long. There were too many scheming against each other. How could they develop? Therefore, he would not casually join any faction. Even if he did, he would at most stay for a period of time. It was impossible to stay for long. Now, the God Creation Palace was very suitable for him. It could even be said that they were very united. From the rumors, it was indeed difficult for newcomers. The tests were very difficult, but ability was only one part of the test. The real test was to test one's heart. It didn't require a particularly heaven-defying ability, just a good foundation. After all, no matter how extraordinary a fellow disciple was, if he was always high up and did not care about anyone, then what was the use of having him? Although many factions would rather have a strong disciple than a bunch of ordinary ones, for this place, what they needed was a sincere senior brother. This way, when they went out to fight, they could trust their backs. At this time, senior sister Fiery Lotus had already appeased the Flame Chaline. They looked very close, and it could even be said that they had a master-servant relationship. After a simple exchange, senior sister Fiery Lotus walked over and asked, "Little junior brother, did you see through it long ago?" "Not really." Yi Tianyun had a serious expression. In fact, he had seen through it long ago. If he could not even see through these tricks, he would be too easily fooled. However, he did not say it out loud to comfort them. If he had known from the beginning, He did not know what kind of blow they would have received. Is that so? Senior sister Fiery Lotus nodded and chose to believe him. Oh right, your senior sister Fiery Lotus is not so frivolous. She is usually very strict. If you casually tease her, be careful of getting burned. Senior brother Hydreigon laughed and said, it's just that she has to sacrifice herself in every test. Otherwise, how can we choose a sincere junior brother to join us? Senior sister Fiery Lotus rolled her eyes at him and reached out to caress the flame Cheline. She smiled faintly and said, little junior brother, you have passed our test perfectly this time. We welcome you to join our God's creation palace. That's right, you passed perfectly. You passed all 3 tests with ease. It can be said that you passed with the best results in history. All of them cheered for Yi Tianyun's addition. Elder East Cloud, aren't you going to treat us? Senior brother Hydreigon looked at Elder East Cloud and smiled. Sure, let's go. Elder East Cloud reached out to pat on Yi Tianyun's shoulder and smiled. Let's go. To celebrate the newcomer joining the God's creation palace, I will treat all of you to drunken stars for a drink. Drunken stars for a drink. Elder East Cloud is really generous. I have never seen you treat us in the past. Cough cough, that was in the past. Now, Tianyun is rather capable and has the best results in history. Can we not celebrate? Elder East Cloud's face was beaming. How could he not be happy to recruit an all-round genius? If he was happy, he would definitely be willing to pay a huge price for a trip to Drunken Stars. The rest could not refute this point. Among them, senior brother Hydreigon reached out and placed his hand on Yi Tianyun's shoulder. He smiled and said, it is all thanks to junior brother Tianyun that we have the fortune to eat this time. Let's go celebrate together. Let's go celebrate together. Chapter 1088. Under Elder Dongyun's lead, they flew directly to Drunken Fanxing. Drunken Fanxing was not very far from the God Creation Palace. Through the teleportation formation, they only needed to teleport to 2 places to reach Drunken Fanxing. As the name suggested, Drunken Fanxing was actually a good place full of restaurants. There was good wine everywhere, and there was even delicious food to enjoy. Basically, many disciples could come here to relax after completing their missions or when they were worried. When they arrived, Yi Tianyun was indeed shocked by Drunken Fanxing's situation. Drunken Fanxing was filled with the rich fragrance of wine. Even he wondered if he had entered a wine pot. Otherwise, how could it be so fragrant and sweet? Although he did not enter a wine pot, it was almost the same as entering a wine pot. It was not the wine that brought such a rich fragrance, but the Drunken Fanxing trees here. The tree trunks seemed to be filled with wine. Otherwise, why would the fragrance be constantly drifting out? In reality, it was not that there was wine in the Drunken Fanxing trees, but that there was a lot of wine buried under the roots of the Drunken Fanxing trees. Every restaurant was surrounded by Drunken Fanxing trees, so they could not casually dig down. Otherwise, they would definitely be broken by the boss here. Through the Drunken Fanxing trees, they could not only add a rich and sweet taste to the wine, but they could also attract customers. We're here. Let's go to this Apricot Rain restaurant. Elder Dongyun pointed. Apricot Rain restaurant. Elder Dongyun, this is no longer as simple as bleeding, right? Senior brother Hydreigon and the others exclaimed, in the past, when we joined, you were not so generous. Isn't this a little too biased? Ahem, this is not biased. You guys have been working hard all this time. Can't I reward everyone a little? Elder Dongyun said while waiting for them. Hehe, Elder Dongyun is still the most generous. Then let's go and drink a few pots of wine. They all laughed and rushed to Apricot Rain restaurant. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Yi Tianyun smiled at the side and followed them in. This atmosphere was really good. These were the fellow disciples of the same sect. Little junior brother, you really can't tell? Senior sister Fire Lotus couldn't help but ask. Looking at senior sister Huolian's doubtful gaze, Yi Tianyun thought for a while before nodding and saying softly, I can see one thing. Senior sister Huolian's acting is a little bad. It's not natural enough. His voice was so soft that only the 2 of them could hear him. After hearing this, senior sister Huolian's beautiful eyes were filled with innocence. Is it really that bad? Can you tell so easily? This is a little exaggerated. It's fine for others, but I see more details. For example, it's clearly my mission for you to take the lead. Why did you take the lead? Moreover, you're even exchanging glances with the flame Cheline. It's hard not to know. Yi Tianyun said helplessly, in the future, Senior Sister Huolian, you should make a detailed plan. That way, you can be foolproof. Senior Sister Huolian suddenly laughed. Are you saying that I'm not natural enough in battle? You didn't find anything wrong with the others? That's right. There's just a little problem with the battle. Yi Tianyun smiled. That's great. I'll improve in the future. Thank you for reminding me. I almost lost my confidence. Senior Sister Huolian smiled happily and patted his shoulder. Speaking of which, you pushed me away and spoke so righteously. It's really attractive. If there's a chance, I'll introduce a sister to you. There's no need for that. Yi Tianyun quickly waved his hand. There's no need for that. It's good to get to know each other. Senior Sister Huolian smiled. Let's go drink. Seeing that she had relaxed, Yi Tianyun shrugged. In fact, he had seen it from the beginning. However, seeing that Senior Sister Huolian was so conflicted, he must have said something. Otherwise, she would have gone crazy with her questions. The others saw that Senior Sister Huolian's mood suddenly became better. They did not know what was going on. Then, they entered the Apricot Rain restaurant. As soon as they entered, they saw that there were apricot trees everywhere. They looked yellow and beautiful. Some were even planted in the air. Dense apricots fell from the sky. It really looked like a rain of apricots. They did not expect that this kind of ordinary fruit would become a theme here. Elder Dong-yoon is here. I haven't seen you in a long time. At this time, the owner walked over with a smile. It's been a long time. Give us a private room. Elder Dong-yoon waved his hand. No problem. Please follow me. The owner led the way. As an elder, Elder Dong-yoon naturally had to lead the way. The group followed. When they were about to enter the private room, they passed by a private room and heard a surprised voice. Isn't that Elder Dong-yoon? Why are you so generous this time? Why did you invite so many people to drink? Everyone turned their heads to look, and what they saw was also an old man, slowly tasting the wine with the three of them. When he saw them, his eyes were filled with mockery, but more than that, there was disdain. Yi Tianyun noticed that this person's clothes were similar to Elder Dong-yoon's. This meant that he was also an elder. Of course, the Hall of Gods had more than one elder. However, the situation was very different. There were also internal conflicts. Every elder had a different management style. Elder Dong-yoon liked to be united. The foundation could be a little weak, but the character had to be up to standard. So it's Elder Xiao Tian. I was wondering who it was. I'm generous and like to invite disciples from my side. Is there a problem? Elder Dong-yoon laughed coldly. Not really. After all, the money is yours. How you waste it is your business. Hey, there's a human too. TSK, Elder Dong-yoon is really regressing. You even accepted a human as a disciple. What does this look like? A garbage collection center? Elder Xiao Tian did not mince his words. He directly said that Elder Dong-yoon specialized in collecting garbage. Everyone was instantly enraged. Among them, senior brother Yu Long stood out and smiled faintly. Elder Xiao Tian, speaking of which, your disciple seemed to have lost like a dog in front of us. He was barking as he walked. Did he really think he was a stray dog? Elder Xiao Tian's face darkened. He waved his hand, and a few chopsticks pierced towards senior brother Yu Long. They were quickly blocked by Elder Dong-yoon. Elder Xiao Tian, what is the meaning of this? Elder Dong-yoon said with a cold gaze. Nothing much. Elder Dong-yoon, you should properly manage your disciples. When the elders are talking, the disciples should not interrupt. Don't you know this kind of etiquette? Elder Xiao Tian laughed coldly. Don't worry. We still know this kind of etiquette. However, the disciples I recruit are my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Elder Dong-yoon said coldly. That's right. So what if we recruit any clans? They are all our juniors. Yes. They are all our juniors,